answers that we have received from the administration. So please feel free to look at your tablet and just as a refresher to some of the questions that we sent over to the administration side. Because we are not voting on this piece today, we are only here for discussion purposes only. Then we can begin. We do not need a quorum this morning to get started. So, Madam Clerk, I will still read the ordinance into the record. For the meeting, ordinance number 1325-2025 by Mayor Bibb, an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the directors of law, parks and recreation, port of control, and or the Office of Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more agreements and or amendments to the lease by way of concession with the Browns on their their designees to effectuate the terms and conditions in the settlement term sheet regarding the relocation of the Cleveland Browns to the city of Brook Park and the demolition of Huntington Bank Field, determine the method of making the public improvement of designing and performing demolition and site preparation of such sports facility and other structures, and designing and constructing various lakefront improvements, authorizing other professional service contracts, accepting gifts and grants, and establishing the community benefits project and the lakefront development sub-funds. All right, we do have a presentation this morning from the administration, and before we get started, Committee Chair Bishop will handle the public comment portion of the meeting. So once we get to that point, we will hand it over to Chairman Bishop to take over the meeting from that point. All right, we're good? Okay, Chief, we'll turn it over to you, and you can introduce your team.
Chair, members of City Council, thank you for having us this morning to discuss Ordinance 1325. I'm joined by a number of senior leaders from the administration. First, Bonnie Tewin, our Chief Operating Officer, Scott Skinner from the North Coast Development Waterfront Authority, Jessica Trevisano from the Mayor's Office, a senior advisor to the Mayor, our our Director of Law, Mark Griffin, and our Chief of Integrated Development, Tom McNair. I'm Bradford Davey, Chief of Staff to Mayor Bibb. We're here to first provide a high-level summary of the settlement agreement as discussed last month. We will also make some time to answer questions that the members may have about any terms listed in the settlement agreement. We will also point back to the October 29th letter that was sent over to Mr. Titrin that outlines the 54 questions that were sent over by the individual members. So we'll start just by a high-level summary of the settlement agreement terms. First, HSG will donate $25 million to the City of Cleveland by December 1st, 2025 to advance lakefront development. HSG will also raise the current Huntington Bank Field in downtown to a pad-ready state at the Browns' expense that will begin promptly upon termination of the parties' lease agreement. It should be noted that HSG will cover the costs of demolition and excite work even if it exceeds the $30 million estimated cost, which was an important point made by members of council. HSG will also pay $5 million to the city by January 1 of each calendar year from 29 to 33, totaling $25 million over 5 years to advance the lakefront vision. And then upon termination of the lease, HSG will also invest no less than $2 million per year over the next 10 years on mutually agreed upon community benefits projects throughout the city, totaling no less than $20 million. It's important to note that those will happen throughout the city, not simply on the lakefront. Both parties will, of course, work together to ensure public health and safety interests regarding any efforts at Hopkins Airport. It's been noted that we want to ensure the safe transfer of all of our residents and visitors. And then both parties will mutually support infrastructure plans with respect to the stadium project and modernization of Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. I want to just spend a moment focusing in on the community benefits projects. HSG will contribute $2 million per year to the city for 10 years for community benefits projects upon termination of lease. It is important to point out the scope of those projects. Eligible projects will advance health, safety, or the provision of community services within the city of Cleveland through any one or more of the following: capital improvements to existing infrastructure, construction of the new facility, educational programming, and recreational program. So more specificity on the utilization of projects, utilization of capital for projects in the city of Cleveland. On or before March of each year, the administration and council will jointly propose community benefits projects for the year to HSG. HSG and the city will work in good faith to align projects with city priorities on timing and implement the projects. This really illustrates the long-term partnership and collaboration that we expect to have with this body over the course of the settlement. And then, of course, those projects will total $20 million in community benefit across the city of Cleveland. Of course, with the transition of the stadium, it puts an even more acute need to solve for the current site at Cleveland's North Coast. The donation by the Browns will advance lakefront development by $50 million and provides a method for demolishing the stadium and preparing the site for development at no cost to the city, All improvements, public improvements, amenities, buildings, other improvements, all subject to the Planning Commission review and the city review process. So please know that although HSG will take responsibility for the site work, it will remain the purview of the city of Cleveland to approve any of those decisions. And then the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation, which Scott represents, is currently evaluating responses to lakefront development RFQs to identify partners to lead redevelopment efforts. I would also just note that the council president has been instrumental in the review of those RFQs, another point of collaboration between both bodies. And it was brought up at the last hearing, and so it is worth underscoring that HSG does not have development rights for the lakefront or Burke. So in this agreement, development rights for the lakefront or Burke Airport are not contemplated. Just a couple of additional points before we take a step back and answer any additional questions from the members. HSG will invest $50 million total for lakefront, $25 million up front, $25 million over 5 years, plus cover the stadium demolition cost. That's about $30 million and $20 million in community benefits for projects throughout the city. $70 million funding commitment does not change, even if demolition and pad prep costs change. So we understand that the environment currently is one that fluctuates quite a bit. That will not affect the reality of this settlement. The settlement allows the Browns to exercise 2 one-year options for the stadiums. The economic impact study by eConsult estimates $30 million in regional impact of the stadium leaving downtown, and that is mostly indirect impact. That's mostly indirect. About $32 million in principal remains on the stadium to be paid off in 2028 before the end of the lease, and an estimated $4 million in capital repairs over that term. Capital repairs will be limited to repairs necessary for the health and safety of visitors' employees. That is agreed upon and enumerated in the lease. And there is, this is maybe the most important point that underlines all conversations here today, that there is no legal strategy. There is no recourse that can force the Browns to stay in their stadium in Cleveland beyond the end of the lease in February of 2029. This settlement is a result of that reality and one that we are eager to discuss with the members. Thanks for the chance to spend some time with you this morning. We would love to answer any additional questions you have outside of the questions that you sent over to the administration earlier last month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Is there anyone else from your team who'd like to say a few words?
I think we're ready for questions.
Okay, sounds good. We'll turn it over to Councilman Bishop and then Councilman Slife for introductory remarks. We go to the committee.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. I do have some initial questions, and of course, I'm not going to try to ask all of my questions I have, but I'm going to allow my colleagues to kind of chime in. But you know what concerns me is the agreement we have with the Browns in good faith with the capital repairs, and we talk about the capital repairs will be done based on what's emergency and what's for the health and safety of our patrons at the stadium and everybody that inhabits the stadium. But in in the case where we can't agree, between the city and the Browns, and then the council weighs in on this also. In the case where we can't agree, how are we going to resolve any kind of disagreements as far as capital repairs going forward between now and the end of the lease?
Through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilman Bishop, first of all, thank you for your question. Let me first note that the limitation on necessary repairs will be written into the amendment. So not just will it be good faith, but it'll be written as part of a binding agreement. And then that agreement, because none of us want to get into protracted litigation or fights over what is or is not an emergency repair, we have mandatory arbitration, which should expedite things as quickly as possible. So we hope that there's good faith, but it's trust but verify. So that's why it's written into the agreement, and there is rapid arbitration to resolve those disputes.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair. So you say we have a process where we're going to do arbitration if we can't come to reasonable terms. But in a situation where the city council weighs in and the city council doesn't deem these repairs to be necessary, but we have a disagreement with the administration, how we handle that? Through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilman Bishop, the same way that we handle disputes between council and the administration, which is we need to sit down and talk about what the city's position is as a whole. And certainly if there is a dispute here where we can't pass or approve those finances, I would think that it would go to arbitration.
Okay. All right. So another question I have is that the Browns have pledged to make a payment up front this year, by the end of the year, of $25 million. How will that $25 million be handled, and when will the city start to spend that $25 million and start to plan for a lakefront redevelopment?
To the councilman through the chair, great question. The $25 million will be donated to the city as soon as December 1st, pending council approval of the legislation. So likely after December 1st, but as soon as feasibly possible. Those dollars are intended to advance the redevelopment of the lakefront, and I would say generally there's a couple buckets of work that'll go into. It's planning and engineering necessary to prepare the site for redevelopment. It is some short-term interventions to make the site enticing in the meantime, so things like the North Coast Yard that we did this summer and plan to continue doing in the interim until we fully redevelop the site. And then will also be used for will be able to be used for some of the park planning and operational needs for NCWDC. I don't know if Scott has.
Just added to the councilman through the chair. Those three buckets are correct. We're looking at public space, infrastructure, and operations, engineering, planning. The public space is important for a couple reasons. One, in the 5,000 plus community surveys that we have, in the hundreds of community meetings that we've done as part of this project, the common denominator from almost every single respondent was a desire for public space on that site. So we are trying to fulfill that commitment to the community first and up front. The second reason that's important is it is something that we can start right away that entices potential development partners. When you look around the city of Cleveland, really quality public space attracts additional private investment. So it's both a way to fulfill our commitment to the community and also to attract potential development partners.
To the councilman through the chair, I want to make sure I completely answer your question. Those dollars will come to the city. I think you asked about the logistics too. So those will be dollars that are accepted by the city and then dispersed by the city.
Okay. Another question I have is through the chair, that at the end of our lease, the Browns have an option to have 2 one-year options to renew. If they are not ready to move, and let me say this, I'm not happy with the agreement that we made to extend the Browns to the exact same terms of lease that's been the current leases right now. I do believe we should be able to make some changes to that lease for 2 one-year renewals. But if the Browns are not ready to move to Brook Park after the end of the second renewal, how will the city approach that?
Through the chair to the councilman, First, obviously, it'll be assessed at that time, but there's a hard stop after 2 years. We want certainty on the lakefront. We want to know that we can move forward on that. And so, our view at this time is they need to be done after 2 years because we have exciting things to open up the lakefront to the public. Mr. Skinner's here, Ms. Trevisano are working hard. And so our view is that that is a date certain.
Okay. All right. Chair, I'm done with my questions.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop. Chairman Slife.
Thank you. Excuse me. And I want to start with some questions that are more narrowly tailored to the Transportation Mobility Committee. The first, my assumption all along has been that and this is a technical question, I appreciate, that the Browns don't have any sort of submerged land lease simply because they are tenants within a city facility. Is that the case?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, that is the case.
Okay, thank you. What conversations have been had with the Browns as we define pad-ready site? I ask because the lakefront is a very tricky development site, and we've done a very good job in this city of putting out pretty pictures of what the lakefront could be, but I don't think we've done a good job of educating the city on what hurdles there are because it's landfill, what hurdles there are from the state because it's legally considered Lake Erie, what hurdles there are to financing development when we are prohibited by charter from selling land, so we are having to come up with complicated 99-year leases that are very confusing, maybe not enticing for banks. My concern is that a pad-ready site in Medina County, to me, is very different than a pad-ready site on the lakefront that is not only going to need all the support to finance any development, but is also going to need very significant subsurface structure in order to support development. And my fear right now is that a lot of that exists. Clearly, we have a stadium. What is being ripped out, and are we actually making the site less developable in how we're defining pad ready?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, you are saying out loud the thing that I've been focused on almost exclusively for the past 2 weeks is making sure that that site is going to be properly prepared for vertical redevelopment on the site. So we're going back and forth with HSG for the full settlement document in our definition of pad ready and how we then assess that the site is in fact pad ready because we are being outcome oriented here. They have to deliver us the site in a certain way, regardless of the cost. And so we are highly focused on exactly what you've said, is making sure that the site is ready for vertical redevelopment. And I might let Scott speak to maybe the broader picture of that financing and making sure that the space can be attractive to developers.
Sure. So, Councilman, you're exactly right. You know the site very well, that it is a very complicated site. We've done a significant amount of due diligence work to understand sort of the general boundaries of what engineering improvements will need to be had. That's obviously highly dependent on what the ultimate development looks like. And then to answer your question directly from a submerged land lease perspective, we've also been working closely with the Director of Port Control to make sure that the submerged land leases that we have with ODNR are financeable, essentially. So as I know you know more than most, there are a number of different submerged land leases on that site, as well as across the entire lakefront, all with different lease terms. Sort of the behind-the-scenes work that we've been doing over the last 18 months is working to, and this is not complete yet, it has been going through council, will continue to go through council, working to combine all of those submerged land leases into one submerged lease and adopt terms that are financeable. And we're working with real estate attorneys and development partners to ensure that what we are submitting to ODNR is something that they can secure debt from or get equity from.
Okay. Thank you. Included in that, have there been conversations or a need for conversation with the railroads as potential lakefront property owners? I know that was dealt with across the lakefront years ago, but I don't know if those conversations at the time focused directly south of the stadium.
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, we've been engaging with railroads, especially as it relates to the North Coast Connector project. So this is one of those places where there's some bleed over between the North Coast Connector and the future redevelopment. So yes, we've been having conversations with railroads about where each property lies.
Okay, I can pepper my colleagues later with why I'm asking about railroads, but I'll spare you all right now.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome. You know, it's trying to, unless you guys want to be here for 9 hours. Just out of curiosity, Has there been any desire or engagement with the state of Ohio related to the submerged land lease issues? And at what point can we convince Columbus that the lakefront in the year 1800 is no longer the lakefront to absolve us of all of this bureaucracy?
Sure, I can speak to that. We have had conversations with ODNR to encourage, to make sure that we have submerged land leases down there that are financeable. I have not directly had conversations around fixing the broader challenge. I imagine that would involve change to the state law and a whole bunch of other things. But what we're trying to focus on is right now making sure that this is an enticing site to development partners and something that we're able to build public space on ourselves.
Okay, I think that we quite earnestly should pursue those conversations. Quite frankly, I'm tired of one of the largest impediments to developing lakefront land in the city of Cleveland being out of our control and us getting blamed, or there being an insinuation that we're incapable of doing something when in fact I would say the state makes us incapable of doing a lot of things. And I will also say to the desire for public green space on the lakefront, I'm not worried at all about the availability of public green space on the lakefront. It's the easiest thing to do. The harder thing to do is to actually develop along the lakefront and to build structures. And frankly, I found the answer in about our concern about how are we going to recoup $30 million lost. It is factually correct that the stadium does not generate $30 million directly. However, I am fearful that a lakefront that is exclusively or overwhelmingly green space, while beautiful, would not even come close to recouping the indirect benefits that we currently get from the stadium. And I'm just going to call it as I see it. It is very difficult to get the administration interested, in my opinion, in kind of routine stuff in the neighborhoods. And the enthusiasm with which we see the lakefront and trails and the riverfront and things in the urban core. And I could go list after list of projects, and I'm going to try to get off the soapbox. But my worry is that if we are not recouping anywhere near $30 million, how is our general fund going to be able to simultaneously absorb a large park and its maintenance needs alongside all of the other routine things that occur across the city of Cleveland? And at what point are the residents of the city of Cleveland effectively continuing to subsidize regional amenities by having parks that aren't as grand as what we see in the suburbs, rec centers that have deferred maintenance, all of those things? That's the worry. The specific question is with, as you're looking at RFPs, is there a break-even, for lack of better terms, scale of development or jobs or things that has to happen on the lakefront to meet our expectations? Or do we risk this becoming a very, very beautiful park that perhaps the city simply can't afford?
Sure, I can start to the councilman through the chair. The park, the way that I'm thinking about the park is that, again, it entices additional developers. I agree vertical development will need to be an absolutely critical piece of this. We've had frankly, a more robust response from this RFQ process than I initially anticipated. We are currently evaluating responses, interviewing respondees, and we'll ideally make a selection in the near future. And those responses include significant density multifamily. Those responses include hospitality. Those responses include entertainment and recreation. Realistically, we're not going to replace 65,000 people coming down to the lakefront 10 days, over 10 days a year. But what we can do in the aggregate with a number of different uses is make up for that lack, that lost in economic impact.
Yeah, so also through the chair to councilperson, first, I wanted to say that I wish we were in a world where the Cleveland Browns were investing downtown and in a world-class lakefront. That is not the world in which we live in, right? And that is not our choice. I also think that it's important to know that $31 million economic impact exists downtown, and that is going to harm downtown businesses, and that is not our choice. That $31 million economic impact, as also said, is indirect, right? And so it's not direct dollars into the coffers of the city of Cleveland. And I think also important to acknowledge that what we're talking about here is the reversal of decades of public policy, right? If you look at the totality of all of the different complexes that we have invested in downtown, right? Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse brings in over 2 million visitors annually. Progressive Field brings in 1.8 million visitors annually. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame brings in about 600,000 visitors annually. Cleveland Browns Stadium brings in about 650,000 visitors annually. Great Lakes Science Center brings in about 300,000 visitors annually. That's about 5.3 million visitors to our downtown, of which Cleveland Browns Stadium represents about 12% of that. Right? And so I think it's also important to think, as Scott was pointing out, and the crux of why we're here today, right? This is $25 million. It is beginning the process of accelerating that transformation of our lakefront, right? You know, it's 650,000 people coming to Cleveland Browns Stadium. North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation painted some cracked asphalt and put a shipping container down, and 25,000 unique visitors showed up this year. Right? That is just like one small snippet of what we're getting at, because, you know, ultimately I say all the time, right? Like, we are the waterfront city that can barely see and does not touch the waterfront. I can barely see it out the window sitting here behind you. You have to be in a perch of some building. Like, we are nowhere near it. Like, there are cities that would cut their proverbial fingers off to be able to have the natural assets we have out there, and we have to begin the process of connecting to them. You know, I think it's why we created the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation. It's why we put in place the Shore to Shore TIF District, because it's like I've always joked that I'm 49 years old. We've been talking about doing this since I was like -10. We actually haven't made a whole lot of progress, right? So we've been putting the tools in place to actually get there. But as we've learned, it is very expensive to borrow the dollars necessary to make those connections, right? So we need every grant dollar we can get. 25 million, and by the way, Cleveland Browns, at a minimum, are going to continue to play football down here and bring those 65,000. I am always amazed that 65,000 people will show up, no matter what. We've learned that quite a bit over the last 20 years to watch this, right? You know, but ultimately, they're going to be coming down for at least the next 3 years, and we need to do everything humanly possible to begin to accelerate this transition to support those downtown businesses, right? Because when those people stop coming down for purposes of watching a sporting event, we need to have something to backfill that. And I agree with you, Councilman, right? Like, it needs to go beyond that, but that is also why this agreement has $2 million annually for a period of 10 years that is working on community benefit projects all over the city of Cleveland, not just downtown. But I think it is very important that we remember that there is an extremely direct impact to those businesses downtown, right? And if you look at the way many of them function, you know, if you are in the southern end down by Gateway, right, it's like you make the bulk of your money from a food and beverage standpoint. You've got opening day of the Guardians, playoffs games from Guardians and Cavs, because yes, they go to the playoffs on a regularly consistent basis, right? And that is kind of the nest egg that allows you to stay open other parts of the years. And for a lot of these businesses on the northern half, it is these 10, 12 dates a year where there's 65, 70,000 people that are coming in that support them and help them stay open during the harder times of the year, right? So I think it is incumbent upon us as a city to not forget that those businesses exist and to do everything that we can to build this back up, because I do firmly believe that when we unlock the power of that lakefront, it's going to lead to a hell of a lot more investment downtown Cleveland.
Thank you for that. Nothing that's going to be said today is going to overcome my skepticism or anxiety. So but I appreciate that we all are functioning off of the same set of facts, I suppose. I will say, and I've said, again, because I'm not opposed to the lakefront, but there's a lot of other priorities. Had I been brought into these conversations sooner, one example of something I would have said is, can we find money to help expand CPP to Hopkins? I know I agree that there could be some challenges in a CPP being the power provider for a facility that is not in the city of Cleveland. But as we look to kind of backfill also CPP's lost revenue, I think that the airport is a great opportunity, as is the entire West Park neighborhood that does not currently get Cleveland Public Power. And that would be, I think, a very transformational thing given the terminal modernization plan. Let's put a pin in that for some later day, because that's a big thing to unpack. My final question, and then maybe a comment, can you please elaborate on the $2 million community benefits being subject to the Haslam Sports Group approval? Because I have to say, and I don't say this cynically, but we all bring different goals to our role. You know, A number of years ago, the administration identified the West Park Rapid Station as one of the best transit-oriented development sites. We've seen zero progress on that. I've done rezoning along Lorraine Avenue to try to prevent gas stations from coming in, but the only enthusiasm I'm getting is I'm having to tell people no, but I feel that I'm not getting the administration coming in and helping support what my shared goals are. And I apologize if that is not taken well with you all. My concern is that as I'm trying to fight to support the area of town that I represent, am I now going to have to face another hurdle by having it be mutually advantageous at the Haslam Sports Group? What degree of autonomy is there from this body, and not even this body, this building, to determine how those $2 million are spent, and how extensive is the Haslam Sports Group's approval as you understand it?
To the councilman, through the chair, I can start, and I'm sure my colleagues will add in. This commitment from HSG, just to be clear, is sort of beyond the regular commitments from the NFL that we see kind of consistently throughout our city right now. So this is an additional $2 million. And the items on the screen are really the parameters that we've talked about. So eligible projects wanting to advance health, safety, or the provision of community services, broadly capital improvements to existing structures, new facilities, educational programming, recreational programming. In our conversations with HSG, I don't see them saying that's not the location that we want to be investing in. I think this is intended to talk more about the type of use of those dollars. And so I feel confident that as long as whatever is proposed by the city and administration that is kind of within that second bullet point, that those will be the types of community projects that HSG will say, yes, let's do it, and then let's just figure out how to align on city priorities, implementation, and timing to make sure that we're getting our most bang for the buck. So by default, that $2 million goes to the city for projects that fit within that second bullet point, which is purposely very broad and inclusive. And then it's just a matter of making sure that we're being as efficient with those dollars as we can be.
So thank you, humor me. If this body were to decide that we wanted to use a portion of the $2 million to support an educational curriculum around workers' rights and organizing, would the Haslam Sports Group be able to say that is not how we want these dollars spent because it might not align with their politics? Or would we be able to say this is C, educational programming, therefore it's eligible?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, the way that it would work, I can't say kind of what the outcome would be, but the way that would work is by March 1st of a given year, the city and both the administration and city council would say, here's our proposed plan for those dollars, would give that proposed plan to Haslam Sports Group, and then there would be a discussion on what that plan was. I anticipate it would be a discussion much like this one that would be out in the public, that would be a full discussion of the merits of a proposal if there was disagreement on what those dollars were being used for. So I don't have an answer on how it would be taken, but I do know that the way that we've set up the final settlement agreement is intended to be kind of by default. A city comes to them with a proposal, and then we'd have to work together.
Through the chair to the councilman, you started your comments earlier by suggesting that if you were brought in earlier, you would have done some things differently. This is very earliest days of an opportunity, I think, for the council, particularly the council and the administration, to work together on what that disposition process looks like. This is going to be important to think about how these dollars are spread across your wards. That certainly will not be an obstacle to us, and that will not be an obstacle to HSG. It will be a decision that needs to be made with your body against your members. And so I would offer that now is a great time to be generative and proactive about a strategy on how those may be deployed.
Okay, and bluntly, my concern is that there is an ability to essentially have priorities of this community vetoed for any particular reason. You know, I know I'm running over time, but I can't get through the day if I don't mention it. the city is in other litigation with a property owner in my ward. We were actually found against in the Court of Common Pleas. The city's appealing, and we don't need to get into the details of the case, but it's a frustration to me that in the case of this, there's a willingness to settle and find a mutually beneficial outcome. But when it comes to something in Cam's Corners, in my personal opinion, the city would instead continue to inflict a lawsuit against someone who the Court of Common Pleas has found that the city caused substantial property damage to. We don't have to discuss it, Law Director. I bring it up because part of the challenge of being what I call a bridge and tunnel councilman is trying to get the same level of enthusiasm for things in a regular Cleveland neighborhood as you see downtown. It's a power gap, it's an enthusiasm gap, and I bring it up because I think that there are other opportunities to benefit neighborhoods. The lakefront is not going to be a cure-all for every Cleveland neighborhood. We need to think through additional ways to support localized development and growth and investment in ways that benefits the average Clevelander on a cloudy, cold Monday. And I asked the administration to just remember that this appears to many residents as just another example of that enthusiasm gap. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Slide. Just going back to you, Ms. Trevisano, you mentioned a March date. As I looked at the term agreement and just the conversation we've been having, the March date, so is it expected that the city will submit proposals to the HSG group every March for us to receive that $2 million payment?
That's right, to the chairman.
Okay. So we make a proposal, we submit it to them, because I don't see that in the term sheet. And where did we spell those dates out?
Yeah, to the councilman, the chairman, the settlement term sheet that was attached to the legislation is the term sheet. We talked about at the last meeting that some things would be fleshed out more fully in that final document. And so this is one of the items that we've fleshed out more fully from the last time we were in front of council to now. And we anticipate that this conversation today will continue to help us flesh out those details.
Absolutely, okay. So this is we have additional edits that we need to make to this term sheet, correct?
To the councilman, there will be no edits to the term sheet because the term sheet is the representation of kind of the key overall terms. What the final settlement agreement will add, and I would ask our law director to chime in, but it adds all the details, all the by this date, this thing will happen,
So
by
the additions,
that date.
So the additions, Director Griffin, we will add separately to the agreement, correct?
Yes, the details within the bones of the structure of the settlement agreement that you've seen.
Okay, sounds good. And just continue the line of conversation that Mr. Slide raised, whether there is a disagreement between all parties of how and what we want to use the money for. You know, that concerns me a bit, right? And also, and I'm looking at the term sheet in item D, where the $2 million is slated to be used for the communities and not for the lakefront. But there is a word in here that says the city and downtown Cleveland lakefront. And so I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and that is something that has come up by several council members that have shared with me, including staff as well. And if you want to speak to that, and why is that included in the term sheet here, item D, that includes Cleveland downtown lakefront?
To the councilman, that is in the term sheet. It's for the benefit of the city and downtown Cleveland lakefront. We have heard the feedback that is confusing and makes it sound like
Absolutely.
it's intended to go towards the lakefront. So in the final full document that you will see before this passes, you will see that it does not say "and for downtown Cleveland lakefront." It just says.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right.
Heard.
Lastly, for me, we'll go to the committee members' questions. The demolition side of this, I know we've talked extensively about making sure that this demo happens in a manner that, that keeps the utilities that are underground, right? Is it a fiber that goes to this place down here? I'm sure it is, right? It has to be. Well, whatever high quality is there. Okay. You're so silly. He said AOL. that we really press to make sure that, all of the utilities and other things that we can, utilize for other, vertical development stays in place, and that we just don't have a dirt field, right, with gravel or grass, and then we have to start, all over, that all the lines are capped to a point where you just have to reinstall them. So I'm glad that that discussion came up. But as it relates to the timeline after the team vacates the facility, which I have not heard that, once the Browns vacate the stadium, what's the timer at that point for the stadium to be demolished and come down?
To the councilman, what's in the full settlement agreement is that that has to start within 6 months unless there's some sort of catastrophe that's unforeseen from anybody, but the default is within 6 months.
So they start within 6 months to begin demolition of the site. And do we have some sort of completion? Estimated timeline, completion?
18 months?
Within
And
18 months.
And the 6 months start when they stop playing football there.
Okay.
As opposed to whenever the option ends. It's when they stop playing football, then they need to progress to demolition within 6 months.
Got it, okay. Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll move on to the committee to questions. We have Councilman Starr, Councilman Polenzek, and then Councilman Casey, then Harsh.
Thank you, Chair. To the Chair, to the committee, question I definitely will ask regarding this negotiation deal. Who is the part of the team that negotiated this current deal right here before council?
Chief?
Through the chair to the council member, Mayor Justin Bibb, myself, Bradford Davey, Chief of Staff, Law Director Mark Griffin. We have all been involved in negotiations since early 2022. The rest of the team has really sort of changed over time, right? This 2022 was a while ago. We've changed some teammates. But the team involved in negotiation, the final settlement term, also included counsel from Jones Day, our Chief Operating Officer, Bonnie Tewin, our Chief of Integrated Development, Tom McNair, our Chief Financial Officer, Paul Barrett, and Senior Advisor for Major Projects, Jessica Srivasana.
And through the Chair to Chief of Staff Dave, through that team that you just not mentioned, who has experience in working on any negotiation deals of municipalities, such as stadium contracts, ever? Who on that team have done this before?
Through the chair to the councilman. So the answer is multifaceted, which is within the law department, we've negotiated many public works deals. Obviously, there are only 32 teams in the NFL, so there are very few of those. But with respect to Jones Day also has experience as an entity working on behalf of NFL teams and NFL-related issues. And when it comes to litigation, there are decades of experience in terms of defending the city, negotiating real estate deals, negotiating issues with respect to lakefront development.
And to the point to Law Director Griffin, let me restate my question more so to make it more clear. So through Jones Day, do we have a list of actual NFL, NBA, MLB stadium negotiation contracts that they have currently did before we selected them to be our representation for this stadium deal? To the chair.
I'm sure that I could ask them for that. But remember also that we negotiate stadium deals through Gateway virtually every year with respect to our Major League Baseball team and, of course, our great Cleveland Cavaliers as well. But with respect to Jones Day, one of the things that we wanted was a highly respected team that would negotiate for us. So at the head of our team is Justin Herdman, who was the chief law enforcement and civil attorney for the federal government for the entire northern half of the state of Ohio. And that is truly a capstone position. And he brought with him a team in our world of law. If you clerk for a federal judge, that's pretty impressive. If you clerk for a circuit court judge, that's very impressive. And no one really is good enough to clerk for a Supreme Court justice except at Jones Day. So he brought to us two attorneys who had clerked at the Sixth Circuit, an attorney who had clerked at the Supreme Court. So truly, this was an all-star team. And I don't think that we could have asked for better representation than what we received.
Yes, to that point, just trying to get an understanding from this deal. When we break down to this community benefits agreement that's in before us, it states $2 million per year for 10 years, which is a total of $20 million as far as the community benefits package within this deal. Is that correct, to the chair?
Correct.
All right, now correct. And the reason why I asked that, because have you looked at other stadium deals in which their community benefit agreement was a little bit different? And what I mean by that is, what made us land to this $20 million deal as far as the community benefit agreements? What was so ideally or so great about the $20 million within the 10-year time frame? What made us say that is a good deal? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilperson, first of all, understand this is part of an entire package deal. So we looked at the $100 million benefits to the city that replaced, our obligations to continue to pay for different things. And instead of us paying them, this was us receiving $100 million, of which 20% will go to community benefits. And so we thought that was a strong value. We also thought it was something that in terms of city council would help promote your decisions within your wards. And so we thought this was a strong incentive for us to settle. And in the alternative, the risk was that we could get nothing.
To the councilman through the chair, I'm sorry, but I also want to mention that the $30 million demolition and site work for the stadium in the city of Cleveland is also subject to the city's community benefits ordinance. So the $20 million refers to a cash payment that can be used throughout the city, but there will also be benefits for our MSB, CSB, women-owned businesses for the demolition and site work as well.
Thank you. To me, it makes me think about this deal because when I look at other deals that have been done, just one recently, that is taking place with Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills have a one-time cash payment of $100 million. And then they have another additional $90 million coming in, increments of $3 million per year for 30 years. So right there, that just tells me that's $190 million opportunity of a deal. And we're talking about $100 million for Cleveland. So my question is, when I ask who has experience, who has been doing this type of contract negotiation, you tell me Jones Day, you told me the amount of people on the mayor administration and the team that put this together, and you telling me the best we can do is a $100 million deal, and including the community benefits part of that one-time one-time funding source for the city of Cleveland. I'm just trying to understand: are we negotiating, or are we just having a Coke and an agreement within this? I mean, what is actually this $100 million breakdown? Because as you look at some of this stuff that you call it a community benefit agreement, as far as, hey, they're going to demolish the stadium. So now you say you got this one-time payment or deal of $100 million. Now you're talking about that $30 million comes down. Now we're down to 70. Then you start talking about different increments of $20 million broken into 10 years. Now you're talking about we left with $50 million. And if you're telling me that Buffalo Bills can get $100 million one-time cash payment, and then they got a community benefits agreement where they get $3 million for over a 30-year time period, which is equivalent to, $2 million every 10 years. What are we actually working out here, or what are we actually receiving that we can be able to look at a community benefits agreement to help our neighborhoods or even help the lakefront? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilperson, appreciate your line of questioning. I would first predicate this that every stadium deal is different. So if this is a matter of precedent, look no further than Kansas City, Chicago, Jacksonville, most of the development sites where money is going the opposite way. The term historic deal has been utilized a number of times by some of the reporters in this room, and that is used not superfluously. It's used specifically because it is coming back to the city city of Cleveland. We don't see many stadium deals where money is flowing into the city. Even the deal that you're describing right now, Councilman, is tied up with other investments. There's requirements for the city to make investments into new stadiums. This is a situation in which a team is leaving and making an investment. And so, if we want to sort of have conversations where we do a comparative analysis, it's important that we do a thorough analysis that includes what are the final products delivered for all of those community benefits. To be clear, the only thing that we are delivering through this community benefit is the Cleveland Browns not playing football downtown anymore. And so, the way in which those capitals come into the city are going to be different for each of those projects. More specifically, I'll turn to Jessica to talk a little bit about delivery and purpose.
Sure, and I think just to be really clear about delineating, there are some stadium deals where a stadium is being built within a city. There's substantial public money being put towards the stadium, and then also community benefits as a result of that public money. That is not kind of the situation that we're talking about here. As Chief Davey mentioned, we are talking about a settlement agreement where the Browns are leaving the city, and this is a result of our litigation strategy that we end up with $100 million. There's a very real world where they could go to Brook Park and the city could have nothing. There would be no dollars associated with this. So happy to continue answering specific questions around that $100 million deal, but that is $100 million as a result of the litigation strategy that we've had in an attempt to keep the Browns here, but they will be leaving for Brook Park.
Based on what y'all both just said, take $100 million and that's it, through the chair. Is that what I'm hearing?
Through the chair to the councilman, that is not what you're hearing. What you're hearing is what we just described, Councilman.
So I'm interpreting what you just said to the viewing public. It's basically saying that the administration team right here is saying, hey, we either take this $100 million or we risk not getting anything for the terms of this part of the portion of the Browns wanting to leave to go to Brook Park. So they offered the $100 million, and then they broke down the terms to say that they would pay for the demolition of a stadium that is projected to be around $30 million. But after that projection happened, it possibly can exceed that, because I told you last time when we discussed this, the same amount of $30 million is what it cost to demolish the Yankee Stadium, which was about 11 years ago. So if you think about the cost of inflation, it's not going to be $30 million, it's going to be more. Then I believe this team said any additional cost, the Browns will take care of that cost. And then next thing you know, the Browns will pay or donate $25 million to the city at a one-time cost the minute this deal is struck. So now you talk about $30 million, $25 million, that's $55 million there. Then you talk about additional $20 million. So right there is basically saying we're left with another additional $25 million max. And it just seemed as if the people that have vested in this stadium, the city of Cleveland, is getting the short end of the stick. Through the chair, this is just me talking to the administration to let them know exactly how it feels. When you talk about a community benefits agreement, do we have anything in place, such as creating a community benefits oversight committee to be able to handle this? Through the chair.
To the councilman through the chair, we've not contemplated a special community benefits committee for this. As it relates to the stadium, I would anticipate that would go through our regular OEO process. I think if the council administration want to talk about some sort of committee for the $2 million a year for that total $20 million, I think that's something that we should definitely keep discussing.
Yes, because with the $20 million compared to, like I said, Buffalo, they're getting $90 million on theirs. And they're going to stretch that for 30 years. So therefore, they're going to be able to do different things in the neighborhood. And when I look at different impacts and the breakdown of things that can actually possibly take place within there, I think we need to have a community benefits oversight committee so we can work on different things that they can do. Also, I would like to point out to the Washington Commanders, who's going through a similar contract as well. And one of the things that they have in place with the Commanders is they have the Economic Impact Committee, where they work on small businesses, where they're going to have funding. The team pledged $15 million to contractors for DC-based small businesses. So that's another benefit that the Commanders have. Then they also have a community benefits where the Commanders will invest $50 million over 30 years. to make sure that we have groceries, subsidies in our neighborhood. We know we're dealing with a food desert inside of the city of Cleveland, so we should be able to invest in different opportunities. Job programs and events focus on different wards in Washington, such as 5, 7, and 8, and they also have an oversight committee who would track whether those commitments are met. So therefore, we should definitely consider that. Also, they're going to have local hiring. At least 51% of the stadium and hotel construction job must go to D.C. residents, not suburbs, D.C. residents with smaller contracts set aside for local businesses, youth, and workforce programs, and a new youth academy in their Ward 7, which offers sports, tutoring, mentorship, and teams will go to support those jobs and training. So when I'm talking about a community benefits bill, and we just keep screaming $100 million, as if the $100 million is just great. It's magnificent. It's $100 million. We're not blinded. When you peel back the layers and you get to the root of the actual onion, you start seeing we're not getting $100 million. We're getting more like $30 to $40 million on this deal when we could have got more. When you just seen me break down that the city and Buffalo is getting a $100 million one-time gift. So when you talk about this $25 million on the first December 1st, or once we pass this or get this through council, it should be $100 million from that standpoint. And then we could break down another $90 million or whatever dollar amount to get these other part of the benefits. That's how you negotiate a contract. I'm sorry if I have a sports management degree and I understand these stadium contracts because I studied it. I'm not just saying it because I'm on a team or a committee. I'm trying to make sure we get the best thing for our city so we can be able to do things. Our residents, our taxpayers was the ones who agreed to build the stadium. And this administration, not this administration, the administration then was saying, hey, let's deliver and get a stadium here. Now you're talking about a stadium is getting ready to leave, and a team is getting ready to leave, and we still ain't even paid the stadium off. And then as soon as we pay the stadium off, we're going to tear it down to create a new investment. So my question would definitely go straight into the lakefront development plans. What is the actual plans and also the projected cost for the lakefront development plans that you have for the city submitted so far? Through the chair.
Through the chair, through the councilman, through the chair to the councilman, maybe before I turn it over to Scott about this, I would be remiss not to point out that you failed to mention that the deals that you are describing include the development of new sites, which include taxpayer payments for those sites to remain in the building. So if this conversation is one in which council wants to put general revenue money forward to develop a new stadium, some of those benefits may be possible, but what we heard from this body was to protect the general revenue fund. And so while we could be having a conversation about additional community benefits that go into stadium projects for the development of stadium projects, we have the unfortunate circumstance to be talking about a team who has chosen to leave, in which we have received community benefits in lieu of them staying here. And so it is important that we are really clear that the Cleveland Browns have chose to play football in a different location other than the city of Cleveland, and they have not asked us for more money to build their stadium. If that were the case, through the councilman, through the chair to the councilperson, then we would have made asks for specific CBA items like the ones that you described. But because we are in a situation where the Cleveland Browns are leaving and we are asking them to pay what is essentially restitution for those same commitments that you described, Councilman, I would argue that we are one of the only cities in America who have received the community benefits that you described. And so while I understand your frustration, sir, it is something that has been shared by all of my colleagues. And while I would like to acknowledge Councilman Slife from Ward 17 in his statement that we should be spending our time talking about other things, I would offer that our time here today is in fact that. This is a conversation in which we have all collectively acknowledged that unfortunately the Cleveland Browns will be playing football somewhere else. And in this moment, we are asking to celebrate together the accomplishment of ensuring that the residents of Cleveland will be made whole. It is true, it may not be fully whole. That is up to many of the people around this room to help realize. We will need to work incredibly hard to assure that the dollars that are generated from Cleveland Brown Stadium downtown stay in Cleveland. And what I know, what I am certain of, is all of the people inside of this building will work tirelessly to ensure that happens. But what I cannot allow is for us to mix and mingle realities. This is a reality that happened to us, and we should be proud of our collaboration at the end of it with the Cleveland Browns to deliver something for residents. If there were more to be got, please know that we would be taking responsibility for leaving something on the table. That is not the case, and I am incredibly proud of the men and women who have ensured that to be true. Thank you.
Through the chair. Okay, so within this negotiation, what would be the cost of paying off the bonds is going to be since you negotiated this? Through the chair.
Mr. Trevisano?
Sure, sorry, let me just flip to. There is currently the remaining debt balance, remaining debt service for the next 3 years is about $9.2 million a year for 26, 27, and 28. That's the debt principal remaining on the stadium that is tied to the 30-year lease of that stadium. So right under $30 million.
And then the net funds that will be available after the demolition and the bonds repayment is done, paid off, what would that be?
Once the bonds are paid off, there's no other additional money that would have to go into the stadium besides for annual capital repairs, which are limited to just health and safety repairs.
And then the annual capital repairs left remaining on the stadium up until 2028 is how much projected cost?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, we're estimating around $4 million a year for health and safety repairs to make sure that visitors and employees of the stadium are kept safe.
So roughly 12 million or 16 million? Through the chair.
To the councilman through the chair, roughly 12 million.
So therefore, are you telling me we're going to pay off a house and then tear it down and continue to put money into for the next 3 or 4 years through the chair?
To the councilman through the chair, I was not here 30 years ago when the administration and council agreed to a 30-year stadium proposal, but that is how the debt and the capital repairs are based on, is that 30-year commitment that the Browns are going to continue playing in the stadium for.
And I'll wrap up right here, Chair, just to make sure we get an understanding. One of the key deliverables I wanted to make sure I brought to the table is Community Benefits Oversight Committee. We're dealing with terms of how we're going to actually determine how to spend dollars, since we're only getting $20 million over 10 years, as far as community benefits. That mean our city only get $20 million from a team leaving. Wow. Compared to other stadiums, they don't get that. But also in understanding of this deal, I definitely will just wrap up is making sure we understand how we get to that lakefront development. I know I did ask about the lakefront and the actual plans for the lakefront and the actual costs regarding the lakefront development plans. Do we have a total number of how much it's going to cost to actually develop the lakefront? Yes, we know what it's going to look like or what's the goal. Sure. But what is the actual dollar amount that is going to get us to that roadmap of success?
Mr. Skinner?
To the councilman through the chair, it's a complicated question. I'm going to put it in a couple different buckets for you. The first is the North Coast Connector project, which is the change to the reimagining of the shoreway, the construction of the land bridge, and ultimately the construction of a multimodal transit hub. That's estimated to be at $447 million. The part of that is funded, that we are moving forward with, I'll call it the first phase, is a $284 million infrastructure project. That is the construction of the land bridge and the reimagining of the shoreway from West 3rd to about East 12th. That is funded through $150 million in grants, 130 from the federal and 20 from the state. And the balance will be some sort of debt product related to the city's shore-to-shore TIF district. So that's the infrastructure piece of this. Then there's the actual development of the lakefront. And then within that, I'm going to put that into a couple buckets. The $50 million, 25 up front and 5 a year from 29 to 33, is meant to cover some of the public space, because parks don't pay for themselves, as well as the infrastructure costs of the lakefront. Above and beyond that, most of the lakefront will be privately financed. We are going to be developing public space. We will handle some of the infrastructure work, and we are doing that so we can facilitate the market, so we can facilitate developers to come in and build the rest of it. So those are not costs that are borne by the city. We do not know exactly what that's going to look like yet either. The city spent, before I was even in this role, 3 years doing community engagement and understanding what folks want to see on the lakefront, and put together a really terrific master plan with a world-class planning group. That master plan has a stadium in it. So we are reimagining now what that plan looks like without a stadium. What that process will look like moving forward. In short order, we will announce development partners that we want to work with. So these are private developers who have said, I want to invest in on the downtown lakefront. I want to invest my money in Cleveland. We will then work with them and another planning group to put together a new version of a master plan that does not include a stadium. So to answer your question directly, Councilman, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like yet because we are still working through that process. The last master plan was a 2.5 to 3 year process. This is one that is going to be very expedited, and I expect mid-2026 we will have some version of a plan to show to the general public, to show to council, and to solicit additional community feedback from.
Thank you. And just to that last point, you went through a lot of community engagement, resident support about a master plan on a lakefront that did include a stadium.
Yes.
Now that stadium has removed, I think it's in the right and the duty for you to take your actual new plans that you're trying to do back to the community to talk about it. Because if this community envision one thing and then that one major part of the development changes, you're talking about a different area of type of opportunity for development. And then also, back then, we did not include the fact that the administration has asked for help from our Congresswoman to get rid of Burke Airport. So those things need to be included in whatever plans we are looking to do to make sure residents' input is thought of before we just move forward and say, hey, it's going to be expedited. We need to take our time to make sure this plans that we're trying to do actually come forth with the residents included as a top priority. And I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Starr makes a good point about it. Maybe as we continue these conversations between the council and administration, even if it's just centered around the $2 million a year, right? You know, having a group that comes together, you know, not 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4 people, but really a group that can come and discuss, you know, possibilities, you know, for the annual payments that we have. And again, we don't have to make that decision today. It's just, you know, you hear the idea, you know, it is a good idea, right? That we can get folks together to have some of those discussions as we move along. We don't need an answer today, but, you know, let's put that on our list of things to discuss as we move forward, okay? And then secondly, around the you rattled off some numbers, Mr. Skinner, about, you know, what the cost that we have already, you know, some of them which I know because we're still in the NCA. We've been a part of many of these discussions as DPS chair, but discussions that have come to me and just kind of, you know, what some through the conversations, what is the goal, right? What is the goal, and where have we thought about the amount of residents, the amount of commercial office space footage we need to kind of, I don't think it'll be years before we can meet the exact levels of where the Browns and the impact they've had. But, you know, have we thought about the goal? Have we thought about what it's going to take in terms of square footage and amount of residents and people coming to that area to kind of get us to that point of what we will no longer have once the Browns leaves that part of downtown?
To the chair, it's a very good question. A lot of economic analysis was done as part of the process for the initial master plan that does include a stadium. It suggested anywhere from 600 to 900 apartments is what the market could bear in that site. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 hotel keys is what the market could bear on that site. Obviously, without a stadium, the calculus is different, and it'll be a long economic impact analysis and a long process to understand exactly how many apartment units, how many hotel keys, what other uses that the market can bear. I don't have a specific number for you. Obviously, the goal is to replace and add in the aggregate to the users that are coming downtown right now, plus or minus 650,000 people across 10 games. But it will be a very long, to the councilman's point, a very long community-driven process to understand exactly what is going to go there.
Sure. And just thinking, again, all the other conversations, there was once a conversation about this soccer stadium. I know down by the Guardians field, there was a discussion there. You know, have we had conversations with maybe that group who were looking to bring the soccer team here to Cleveland?
To the councilman.
I was asked that question. I
Yeah.
couldn't answer that. I didn't know where it was.
Yeah, to the councilman, I don't want to get too in the details of Scott's RFQ process, but a soccer stadium, there have been conversations around soccer on the lakefront, and currently vetting to see if that's a appropriate use for the site.
Absolutely. You know, even when you think about these tennis fields, right, and places, you know, we have some great summers here, right, and to have a facility like that right off the water that can house soccer teams, who can house, you know, our summer tennis games, and I'm just thinking if some of us want to keep that sports-like feel, right, you know, and those attractions, because those are the type of things that will bring thousands of people together, in addition to concerts and other, you know, kind of national events. But just thinking kind of down the line, you know, I know there's many conversations that are happening around the use of this site, so just wanted to put that out there.
No, appreciate it, the chair. Recreation is something that will be critical to this site, and we're actually already doing it as well. This summer, Director McNair alluded to earlier, at the North Coast Yard, we took 1.5 acres of that 25-acre surface parking lot, put some shipping containers and some paint on it, and had 25,000 unique visitors. Most of those visitors were coming for a Monday night soccer league that Ohio City Soccer put on, sort of playing European-style futsal. P-League hosted a basketball league there throughout the entire summer, every Wednesday. And we had Roland Buckeyes had roller skating there on Friday evenings. So those were what folks are being drawn to for the lakefront right now. We're already doing that work. And when we think about the community engagement process as part of the initial master plan that included a stadium, you know, that information, that process is still useful. We have a lot of data for what folks said they wanted to see on the lakefront, and recreation is right up at the top of the list, and that is top of mind in thinking about how to differentiate this site and how to provide a really valuable asset for the general public that does not currently exist in downtown Cleveland.
Gotcha. And my last point before we move on to the committee members, I'm thinking about all the muni league teams that we have across the city: basketball, football, flag football, and the other folks we have around the city. Have we thought about ways to, as we work to redevelop this site, that we can develop this in a way that we can attract more of those type actions, right? Because those mini league teams, they garner hundreds of people as well, right? And they are happening more frequent than the eight Disney games that we have here from the Browns. And again, I know that it's not the same in terms of attendance and, you know, everything that's centered around the 8 to 10 home games, but those are hundreds of people, man, that are frequent, who are city folks, right? Primarily, and to get them more engaged and down in that part of the city.
To the chair, absolutely. Have had those conversations. One of the reasons why those folks aren't coming downtown to our waterfront right now is that the space doesn't exist, right? So as we are continuing to advance what will be the permanent version of public space down there, of recreation space, and as we are continuing to program the North Coast Yard in the summer of 2026 and 2027, those are conversations that we are already having and will continue to have to ensure that we're meeting the space and physical needs of these groups that, to your point, do come down and utilize other city services, go to restaurants, and spend time downtown.
Sure. Thank you. We'll move on to Councilman Polenzek. Casey Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the administration. I've had the pleasure to work with most of you at the table, except I haven't had the pleasure to work with Mr. Shuttle yet. Let me just say this. We collectively cannot continue to make bad decisions around this city. I've been here long enough to see a lakefront line that goes to a parking lot that nobody wants to ride, the building a hotel downtown with no parking, losing a jail of 400-plus jobs to Garfield Heights, the Browns leaving the Brook Park, schools about to be closed that will devastate our neighborhoods. So I came in this body, there were 33 councilmen. January 1st, there'll be 15. We're going to go through the census again in 2030. If we don't get it right in this city, we're going to lose another 2 wards from the east side of the city. I will tell you that right now. Because I see nothing before us that tells me anything about stabilizing our city, specifically the east side of the city. Nothing. So we have the Browns legislation before us. $100 million. Councilman Starr touched on many of the points. Within $100 million is $30 million set aside for demolition. The legislation, if passed, requires the Cleveland Browns Stadium to be demolished, correct?
To the councilman through the chair, it anticipates that it will be, yes, it will
That's
be
right.
demolished.
It will be demolished. See, I'm not convinced the stadium needs to come down. I'm not convinced of that. I believe, and I'm going to propose to the council, that we need to get an independent study of the stadium. Tell us the condition of the stadium. Give us an independent oversight, engineering report as to the condition of existing Cleveland Browns Stadium. Based on $33 million we owe in debt, plus $27.871 in debt service, $12 million in capital, $1.1 million for the lawsuit, we will wind up at a negative $3.97 million if we approve this deal. We will be in the red, $3.97 million. So to my brothers and sisters, honorable colleagues, and to the administration, I don't believe it's a good deal for the city. When I spoke to Jimmy Haslam twice, and I'll say publicly, I appreciate him reaching out to me to talk. I indicated to him on the phone, I didn't meet with him in person, we talked on the phone for a length, and I told him I thought it was a bad deal. And his comment was to me, and I got to say this publicly, he said, well, Councilman, you tell me what needs to be improved in the deal. And I touched on a few points, but he also said to me, I'm not going to negotiate against myself. So I think, going back to Councilman Starr's comment, I think we still had movement. We had the possibility to get more out of the Cleveland Browns, out of the team, out of what we've experienced. And so I don't think we pressed SHG enough. We have spent almost $700 million on the Lakefront Stadium. Now I want to say that again, $700 million with debt service. Nobody, when our own staff, Mr. Chairman, when our own staff tried to find out how much the roads, the sewer lines, the water lines, the CPP, nobody could tell us. They said it's been too long ago. They can't provide. That's what the staff told me. The city cannot provide that. And I will tell you that was a substantial amount of money because I was here. And I'm the only one left in this body that voted against that bad deal. And I wish I had been wrong, but I wasn't. So we poured millions and millions into water lines, sewer lines, CPP, road work, et cetera, which was never part of the original structure itself. So what do we wind up with? Number one in poverty, number two in childhood poverty. According to people who speak, the worst place in the country for black women to live. I could go all down the list of all the negative indicators that we're confronted with over these past 30 years. So I'm going to go back to my original comment, to the talented people at this table. We cannot continue to make bad decisions here. We are moving into very difficult times, and I'm going to say this to my colleagues. ARPA funds are gone. We're not going to get bailed out from the feds. The bunch in Columbus continue to make bad decisions that affect our bottom line, affect our operations in the city of Cleveland. And why they continue to do this is beyond me. So we're dealing with diminishing resources, and yet we're going to agree to a deal that in the long scheme of things doesn't do much for us, So my question to the law director, is the lawsuit still in effect, the 3 lawsuits? Right. We know there's 4, but there are 3 lawsuits pending.
Through the chair to the councilman, the lawsuits are still in effect. They have been stayed. And if the court or if the council chooses not to approve this legislation, then those will go forward. but there will then be the risk of getting nothing.
Right.
And none of those lawsuits will enable us to force the Cleveland Browns to stay here. At the end of their lease, they can leave. The value of the lawsuits has been to create, certainly uncertainty and to prevent them from negotiating with Brook Park. But
Okay.
the negotiations have been going on for 3 years,
Okay.
3 very difficult negotiations. And I think that this result is a good result.
Okay. Well, Jimmy hasn't told me. He said, point blank, he said, I don't have to give you anything. He told me that on the phone. But I said, we gave you $700 million. And he told me also that the stadium was not a good stadium. But I said, you knew that when you bought it, when you bought the team. Okay? We sacrificed, the people of Cleveland sacrificed. We gave up a substantial amount of money to the Cleveland Browns and to all the sports teams. We gave them a substantial amount of money. And what did we wind up? Take a walk in these neighborhoods. Take a look at what the conditions are that exist in these neighborhoods today. The number of people who can't fix their homes. When you walk, look up. A third of the houses need to get their roofs repaired. Garages leaning, front porches sagging. We could have funded a whole lot of programs and initiatives. But we were told that if you build it, not only will they come, but the city will prosper as a result of it. And it was a bunch of BS. It was a bunch of BS they laid on us. They extorted us. They extorted the previous, the mayor at that time. They extorted him. They extorted the body collectively. They extorted our citizens. So, Mr. Chairman, to the administration again, who are talented people, you're talented people at this table. I don't believe the deal is good for us at this point. I believe the lawsuits give us leverage. They give us leverage because if they are required to stay here longer at Cleveland's Lakefront Stadium, and going back to, I think it was Councilman Slave's comment, whoever made the comment, for us to agree to any lease extension at the same terms, we need to go see a proctologist. Let me tell you that right now, okay? I mean, $250,000 a year? Give me a freaking break. Give me a break. I want that deal. $250,000 a year, that's what they pay the city of Cleveland. We pay the insurance, we pay the taxes, we pay for everything, capital repairs, and we're going to extend that, give them a lease extension for 2 years without extracting anything else out of them? Have we lost our freaking minds at this table? No, should not at this table. Have we lost our minds in this city? So, Mr. Chairman, this is what I see. Touch again with some of my colleagues. The demo is debatable, in my opinion. Because once the stadium comes down, then he has no competition with Jimmy's World out there at the 170 acres. Because he told me on the phone, to his benefit, he wants to bring, he told me, Councilman Polensek, that we only play 10 games there. I said, Mr. Haslam, you're right. But he said, I want to bring at least 50 events out there. He wants to bring at least 50 events. So he's going to compete against Playhouse Square. He's going to compete against Huntington Convention Center. He's compete against Rocket Field. And the folks at Playhouse Square and up at Rocket Field, you know, they had lockjaw. Never said a freaking word during this whole process. Never said a word. And look at the public money we've poured into Playhouse Square in the last 40-plus years. Never said a word. He is going to compete. You know, he's a businessman. He didn't become a billionaire by being pleasant. He became a billionaire by being a hustler, by knowing how to run businesses. He wants to create a complex out there that he told me he wants a 500-room hotel. 500-room hotel plus all these other amenities he wants to create out there. And I got to tell you right now, why the city port control? You talk about bad planning, no vision. The city port control, the division, our department of port did not buy that 170 acres right next to the airport is beyond me. You talk about a lack of vision? It's there. It's a freaking lot. And we don't, right next to the airport, and we don't buy it? I'm like, one bad decision after another. So, Mr. Chairman, we're going now, besides taking the team, now we're going to give him 10 years on community benefits that he has input into. He's bailing, but we're going to give him input into how $2 million is going to be spent. And also, explain to me about this, he's going to have input or about the lakefront development of Burke Airport. Someone explain it. Does he have first dibs on it? Is HSG going to have some input into the development of Burke? Which again is something else that I don't know needs to go. Okay, because the city's never made an effort to make it work.
Director?
Burke Airport.
Through the chair to the councilman, HSG does not have any development rights for the lakefront, either at the stadium or Burke.
Then why is it in the agreement? You got it. It's right in there about you're going to be working with them.
To the councilman
To
through the
coordination, but.
Yeah, to
yeah.
the councilman through the chair, the agreement is intended to indicate that the city and HSG will work together on certain big priorities, like coordinating on the airport to make sure that traffic and the airport improvements are
I'm
done.
not talking about Hopkins. I'm talking Burke. I'm talking Burke in the lakefront. It's right in there.
Councilman, can you share exactly where it is in the agreement that you see that
It
you're
is in
concerned about?
And I think the mayor mentioned when he was here at council, one of the benefits of this new relationship with HSG that's a little less litigious is that we can work hand in hand on some of our shared priorities. And so the intention here is to be able to leverage HSG's relationships in Washington, D.C. and down at the state to try to help accomplish some city priorities like closing Burke Lakefront Airport.
So you're telling him, so both parties will work together to ensuring public health and safety. No, wait a minute, see. Okay, that's not the right line I'm looking
Bottom of
at.
page 3.
Yeah.
Last bullet point on page 3.
I think the difference is whether they have development rights or whether we've agreed to work together to try to promote things. And so I think that's where the confusion could be.
Well, if this council gets to a point, I want to say that again, if this council gets to a point where we wish to redevelop Burke Airport or the lakefront, then I would assume that this council would demand that it be open to any developer who would like to come in and put forth a proposal. But we're not going to be locked into anyone or making deals with anyone. We're going to open up to bring in the best possible development we can. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to belabor the point. There's been very good points made already. I think we could have extracted more out of HSG. I'm troubled by the way the negotiations went, quite frankly. The fact of the state throwing in $600 million, which does not, to my knowledge, does not have to be paid back. As I'm coming down here this morning for this hearing, I'm looking at the noise walls in sections of I-90 that have holes in them, broken guardrails, broken signs, yet the state's going to come up with, the last figure I saw, was approximately $140 million plus to do, ODOT was going to do infrastructure work around their new proposed site. Yet we can't get repairs, we can't get additional state highways repaired in the city. This whole thing has left a very bad taste in my mouth in light of what I've seen historically here. And my comment was to Mr. Haslam. We have to step back a moment and ask about loyalty. We have to ask about remembering the sacrifices of Cleveland taxpayers. And what I've come to the realization here, and when I sat, Mr. Chairman, I sat in then the council president's office with the late Paul Tagliabue, when they came to us to talk about, I was the majority whip, to talk about the lakefront plan, about the Browns stadium proposal. And I'll never forget him sitting in that room, and I think he mentioned maybe football 3 times. He mentioned about the PSLs and who was going to control the concessions and who was going to control advertising and who was going to pay for this and who was going to pay for that and what the NFL was insisting. And here I am, I'm going into a meeting saying, oh, this is about the Browns and keeping the Cleveland, the name here, and keeping the colors here, and all this fan crap. And then it sat in that room in the council, and it like a Pericles sword fell on my head, saying, you know what, it has nothing to do about sports. It has to do about who pays and who plays. Who pays? And what became very clear when I walked out of the council president's office is that we were going to pay through the nose to keep the Cleveland Browns here, to keep the name, to keep the colors. It had nothing to do about what was good for the city. It was about who made the money and who paid for it. So here we are again today at the end of this long process of having to endure a crappy team on the field. Watching that disaster yesterday, I'm glad I didn't watch it. I always watch the last 4 minutes, then I feel fine.
Now we got to wrap up, Councilman.
Yeah, I am wrapping up. Mr. Chairman, as the legislation is presented right now, in all due respect to the administration, and I know Justin Herdeman, fine, outstanding attorney, but I just don't know if they were given the direction, or our team of negotiators. I don't know if I don't believe you were able to extract out of the team what we needed out of the team. And so as the legislation stands, Mr. Chairman, as it stands, if it comes before this body, I will not vote for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Casey.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to a couple of those points?
Yeah, I give you can respond briefly,
Thank you,
Chief,
sir.
because we got to move on.
I did just want to say, Councilman, I appreciate many of your points in there. One, I say all the time, we are a city of infinite needs and very limited resources, right? I understand that. I think it is important to note that we are making a great many investments, particularly on the east side of the city of Cleveland. Leveraging our waterfronts isn't unique to downtown Cleveland, right? There's a $300+ million project for the Cheers and Metro Parks and many people that are coming around between East 55th and East 72nd Street to rebuild our waterfronts, in addition to investments in Gordon Park. But also, all this comes down to the fact that we know that Clevelanders need good quality jobs, which is why this administration and council worked together to put $50 million into the Site Readiness Fund, which is being leveraged by another $50 million, which now has over 200 acres of land under control, much of it on the east side, to bring good, high-quality jobs to the city of Cleveland. I think that also comes in play with the Opportunity Corridor, which there have been many major investments made in, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes right now to populate those sites. And I think also really important, I hear you at the $700 million that the taxpayers of the city of Cleveland, including myself, have made in the current facility there, right? I think it's important for all of us to know that, one, any real estate asset, right, is worth what it's worth today, not what you've put in it over the course of time, right? And on top of that, I think that we can look at this. Was that a lot to pay? Sure. We could go on and on about the impact of professional sports facilities downtown. I know that there are a lot of opinions on that, but I also, I am old enough to remember, I remember my mom and my family were coming downtown to see the King and I after Playhouse Square was vaulted. I was a little kid, and I will never forget my mom telling me, we're going down Prospect Avenue, she said, "Tom, I need you to cover your eyes and put your head down," right? And I didn't understand it at the time, but I think several people may remember what Prospect Avenue used to be like. I also remember that I lived downtown for a period of about 10 years in the early 2000s, and most of the buildings that existed around me were boarded up, vacant, and abandoned, right? And the investments in these facilities brought a lot of folks downtown. They brought a lot of regenerative growth downtown. Did that change the conditions in our neighborhoods? No. Absolutely not. These are not silver bullets. There's a high price to pay. But as we also learned in this city, if you are not willing to pay them, somebody is, right? That is the business of pro sports. It is an ugly business. I think that we're talking about a proposition now where we are actually de-obligating Clevelanders of those long-term costs that we're all dealing with right now. And in exchange for that, we're getting dollars to reinvest of like, where can we drive revenue? Right? Which is why I always come back to like, where are the places that we can win? And when I look at that, it is that green city on a blue lake, right? And so we're talking about taking dollars in right now that we can invest in infrastructure and the types of things that are going to attract investment and the type of investment that is able to be utilized 365 days a year, the type of investments that will pay tax revenues that are coming on the books and not just be about these 10 days a year. So I hear you, and the last part I would add here is it comes to reusing the stadium or demolishing the stadium, right? You know, I know you said it's like negative $3.5 million, but actually, if we went through that, if we got nothing and we went through the whole process and we had to demolish it, then we're down like $40 million. I'll also say that I would think that the adaptive reuse of a facility like that would be incredibly expensive, and somebody's going to need that money to come from somewhere. And I can tell you right now, I don't care if it's adaptive reuse of a stadium, an office building, an apartment building, they all look at us to start plugging those gaps. And frankly, I think when we talk about the concerts, and yes, I absolutely know and understand that we are now talking about a facility that is being designed to compete with many of the places downtown Cleveland. We did not enable that. The state of Ohio did, right? And so, but ultimately, I think if we are talking about places where you can have concerts and those sorts of things, yes. And I think that there's a place for that on our waterfront. I know that those are conversations that are going on right now. And ultimately, if you think about the cost of maintenance, which we all know way too well, that facility, that's probably not what we want to invest in long term as opposed to a more simple structure.
But Mr. Chairman, to the director, and I appreciate your comments. Again, I will say to council, we need to get an independent review of the stadium. We need it, someone needs to tell us independently, is this place that bad that it needs to come down? Okay? And I understand all your comments at the end of the day, and I appreciate them. At the end of the day, again, I want to go back to my opening comment, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your giving me this time. We cannot continue to make bad decisions, Tom. We cannot make bad decisions going forward. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Chief, for your response. Chief Tewan?
May I make a comment in
Yes.
regard? So in regard to the independent study, we have done an independent study in 2024. Osborne Engineering took a full assessment of the current stadium, and they've determined that there would need to be a $117 million investment into up to the year 2034. That's just to keep it at the current level that it is right now. So we have done that study. And then using it for other opportunities, stadiums are built very specifically now to the sport that it's catering to. So a stadium that might be a good stadium for a football team would not necessarily be a good stadium that's for a soccer team or a baseball team.
Mr. Chairman, I would hope that that report would be forwarded to the council, to the various committees, because I've not seen that report, and I don't know if the committees have seen that report. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, just make sure we get it to Mr. Tytra and get it to folks who have not had a chance to see it. Councilman Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just to piggyback a little bit off of Councilman Polensek, when it comes to loyalty, you have to understand who we're dealing with. We're dealing with an individual who, you know, had his Pilot Flying J scandal where he ripped off the hardworking truckers of the United States. We're dealing with an individual who wanted to sue or sued Warren Buffett over billions of dollars because he was inflating his own investments. We've got a guy here who went downstate a number of times in the state of Ohio and has bought the state of Ohio, even in regards to the Modell law, changing different things around when it comes to redistricting and everything else. So, Mike, I don't think loyalty is a word that man, unless it's his own pocketbook, which is what we know of, there is no loyalty to the city of Cleveland when it comes to Haslam Sports Group, Jimmy Haslam, Dee Haslam, or anybody else who's running that organization over there. My first question, Mr. Chairman, to the other side of the table is, at the last committee hearing, Director Griffin, you indicated that the Browns were in violation of their lease. So why is part of this agreement extending the lease that they're already in violation of?
Through the chair to the councilman, you asked whether they were in violation of the lease, and our view is that negotiating with Brook Park and taking steps to build a stadium there was inconsistent with their lease obligations. So as part of a package deal for everything, for the $100 million that we're getting, we think it's in the best interest of the city to make that decision. Let me also say this, which is I think one of the core questions. 30 years ago, our community made a decision to subsidize pro sports, and that's cost us close to $700 million. And one of the objections that I hear today is a value decision about maybe we shouldn't continue to subsidize pro sports anymore. And I think one of the things about this agreement is that instead of us paying 10 to 15 million a year between the bonds and the 4 million upkeep or the 117 million, we will go from paying out to receiving. And so I think it is a good deal on behalf of the city, and I think actually it's consistent with the values that I hear around this table, that we should be receiving money instead of paying money.
Mr. Chairman, to Director Griffin, I hope you keep that same philosophy, thought, and those exact words in mind if the administration ever comes to this council looking for money for another stadium for soccer. I'm just saying. So I really hope that if that's your belief of the administration, that if you ever come to us looking for money to put a soccer stadium in this city, that you keep that philosophy. It's been kind of touched on, but what is the expectation of the advanced lakefront development in conjunction with Haslam Sports Group? To Ms. Trevisano or Scott?
Make sure we, just a reminder, make sure all questions and
To the chair.
answers go back to the chair. All right.
Through the chair to the councilman, can you clarify exactly what you're asking?
Exactly. In it, Mr. Chairman, to Scott.
Yep.
Right. It says in the term, advanced lakefront development, right, that the Haslams will be involved in the advanced, quote, the advanced lakefront development. What would be HSG's role in what we would consider advanced lakefront development? Mr. Chairman, to Scott.
To the councilman through the chair.
Well, I'll call you Scott. I don't know if you have a
Appreciate
title,
it,
but Scott.
$50 million is the first answer to that question. Is the advancement to the lakefront development comes with $25 million upfront and another $5 million per year over 5 years from 2029 to 2033.
And Mr. Chairman, to Scott, is that it? Just the fact that they're going to give the $50 million? That is it? They're not involved with any, what should go there, what shouldn't go there, none of that stuff? Okay, all right.
To the councilman, just to be very clear, with the exception of David Jenkins is the president of HSG, and because the Browns are on the lakefront, they are a stakeholder on Scott's board, along with Rock Hall, Great Lakes Science Center, the port, and the city's appointment. So they have one vote of a board of 12.
okay, so-
But I just don't want it to be misconstrued later.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, to Scott, once they're off the lake, are they off your board?
That is a decision to the councilman through the chair. That is a decision that's up to my board and not me.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, didn't the mayor appoint that board?
Mayor and Council President Griffin jointly appointed the board.
Okay. I know there was, okay, we'll get that. So, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Trevisano, mutually agreed upon CBA. I would love to be in the room, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Trevisano, when you're going to negotiate any of the CBA that the Haslam Sports Group would have to okay in my ward. I would love to be in the room, because I don't think keeping their fingers in the cookie jar and for them to say where the money should be dictated, I think we shouldn't have to okay it through Haslam Sports Group. That's just my opinion.
To the councilman, if you don't mind, Chair, I
Yes.
expect that council will be in the room, that it will be, that we will start between council and the administration to discuss what is on that list.
Okay.
And to the extent that there's disagreement with that list, I anticipate that would be continued conversations with
Okay.
council.
I look forward to that one. All right. Who wrote, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, who wrote the actual term sheet?
Through the chair to the council member, that was done by our outside counsel.
Jones Day?
Correct.
Okay. Which leads me to my next question. Mr. Chairman, the next time we have a joint committee hearing or a committee hearing in this, I do believe that it would be appropriate for Jones Day to be at the table. We'll invite Jones Day to give their opinion on where we should, making sure that there's still an agreement or what their opinion of the whole deal was. Mr. Chairman, to Director Griffin or the chief, who's JHAC LLC?
JHAC LLC, I believe that that's a Haslam-related LLC.
Is it? I don't know, because they're part of this, and I knew so, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Trevisano, could you elaborate? Do you know who they are?
JHAC LLC, I can get you information about what that specific affiliate does, but it is an affiliate of
Because they're
HSG,
part,
and-
whoever they are, they're part of this agreement, and I
That's
just
right.
didn't know, I mean, I understand the other ones, but that one. All right, and in conjunction with the term sheet, 1E, does that put Mr. Chairman, to Director Davey, does that put us in violation of our own city charter? I would like to hear from Chief Davey first.
Through the chair, I'm going to defer to our legal counsel, who is best positioned to answer that question, to our director.
Through the chair to the councilman, the answer to that is no. The resolution that was passed, the ordinance that was passed by this council, urged the administration and me, the law director, to enforce the Model Law to the fullest extent possible. Part of the Model Law is contingent upon whether or not the city agrees to allow them to go. And so what this does is essentially satisfies the Model Law and satisfies the resolution by giving them that permission.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director, you know it was an ordinance and not a resolution, so it is law.
Yes, thank you, and
okay.
I
All right.
misspoke. I think I said both resolution or ordinance, but
So that brings me to my second question, Mr. Chairman, to Director Griffin, Chief Davey. 2A, if this is passed, are we telling the Cleveland Browns, yes, you have our permission to leave the city of Cleveland?
yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Trevisano or Scott or even Chief Tijuan, is raising the stadium tied to lakefront development?
To the councilman, yes.
Okay, so since tearing the stadium down is tied to lakefront development, the initial $25 million that the Haslams have agreed to provide the city could go toward then the bonds, since that's part of lakefront development, and that original $25 million, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Trevisano, is for lakefront development, and tearing the stadium down is part of lakefront development. We could actually use that $25 million to put toward the bond, which would leave us only $8 million and free up $25 million in general fund that the taxpayer of the city of Cleveland have obligated to the stadium.
To the councilman, through the chair, and I'll ask my colleagues to add, the intention of the dollars, the settlement dollars with HSG, is to advance our lakefront mission. And so while demolition of the stadium is a key portion of that and paying off the debt is a kind of prerequisite to the demolition, ultimately what we're looking for is to, as I think we've talked about really well here today, is to mitigate the impact of losing the stadium for our downtown businesses, our residents, and our city overall. So maybe
No.
technically yes, but I think that there's a lot of reasons why we wouldn't want to.
Right,
kind of-
but the $32 million or $33 million that's left on bond revenue is being paid for by the taxpayers of the city of Cleveland, Mr. Chairman, to the other side of the table. And if we have the ability to ease their burden on the $32 million that is left with a $25 million gift for advancement of the lakefront, and you just admitted that tearing the stadium down is for advancement of the lakefront, we could possibly use that $25 million toward paying off the bonds, which would ease the tax burden of the ratepayers of the city of Cleveland, correct?
To the councilman, I don't know that it would ease the burden to the taxpayer, because then in order to advance lakefront development, there would have to be additional debt. And I don't want to get into all of the
Right,
sort of
but
debt repayment
Mr. Chairman and Ms.
mechanisms.
Trevisano, there's two things here, right? Our taxpayers of the city of Cleveland, we know already are obligated to pay $32 million left on paying off that stadium. Not every taxpayer may want the advancement of a lakefront, okay? So what I'm saying is that we know we have an opportunity to use $25 million to ease the burden of what's owed on the stadium that is being paid for by our taxpayers through bonds that we have taken out. We have that ability, and this can be for further discussion. I just want to put this on the table now. We have that ability to use that $25 million because it'll be obligated in the term lease that it's for advancement of lakefront development, and we know that tearing that stadium down is for the advancement of the lakefront development. This is for a further conversation, but Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Davey, Mr. Visano, the law director, there's a possibility that we could save the taxpayers that $25 million burden.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Through the councilman, through the chair to the council member, while that is true that technically and legally that we are able to do that, I think a couple of things are important to note. First and foremost, while it is certainly true that every single Clevelander may not be interested in the advancement of the lakefront, it is almost definitely true that every Clevelander wasn't previously for funding of sports facility, and yet previous councils and previous administrations have put ourselves into this obligation, which I may note is compulsory. What is different is the payments that we're currently describing are non-compulsory. They are not required. And therefore, it is a two-party negotiation. Both parties need to agree. And what HSG has said, in really response to both this council and this administration, is that what they are interested, willing, and eager to support is the restitution that it needs to be paid for the movement of the team from the lakefront. And so the team themselves are interested in paying for this. And so while there may be a host of things that the city, the council, the administration want HSG to support, HSG still needs to agree to support those because it's non-compulsory. And so you are correct that technically this is true. What I would state is that the $100 million that have been negotiated and in the buckets in which it has been negotiated are things that have been agreed on by both parties. And so I think we're ending up with a set of investments that everyone feels good about, at least as a reflection of the things that this community has said is necessary to be paid back for failure of playing football in Cleveland.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman and Mr. Davey, a couple of weeks ago, I asked for an evaluation of the $450, or the 450 acres of Burke, the 50 acres that the stadium sits on, and the stadium itself. Has the ball started rolling, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Trevisano or Mr. Davey, to get those evaluations done?
To the councilman, we have not done any new work on valuing any of those properties since we last talked.
And then, Mr. Chairman and to Chief Davey, why no tax revenue sharing? If Sherwin-Williams was going to move to independence, right, we would have negotiated something with the tax revenue, as we did when the Cavaliers moved their practice facility. You know, there was negotiating back then and there. Here, it's just a strict no tax revenue sharing. Why not? Mr. Chairman, to Director Griffin, I guess.
Through the chair to the councilman. Obviously, that would have to be by the consent of Brook Park and as well by the consent of the Browns, and that has not been part of the deal or the agreement. So I think that is the core reason.
All right, Mr. Chairman to Chief Davey, obviously that stadium is one of CPP's top 10 customers with an estimated value of revenue of about $500,000 a year. Now, we know, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey, last year when the council was considering allocating dollars to CPP, the administration said no when it was a $5 million ask, and now we're losing $500,000 a year. Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey, is there a plan going forward to invest, for the administration, to invest in Cleveland Public Power one way or another?
Through the chair to the council member, would offer that will need to be a collaborative effort between both bodies to make broader capital improvements and investments into CPP. What I think is important to note is that there would need to be significant investments in CPP to ensure the viability of power to that stadium, some $20 million to extend out to Brook Park. And so while we may appreciate days gone by of $5 million of American Rescue Plan dollars, $20 million for a single site activation is something that we would need to contemplate as a broader strategy. I certainly defer to our COO with.
And Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey, I'm not talking about providing power to the new stadium out there, right? But there needs to be an expansion of Cleveland Public Power to the west side of Cleveland, right? I think we're way beyond the political days of that fiasco and the history there. But, there needs to be a significant investment somehow, some way, somewhere to get Cleveland Public Power to the west side of Cleveland to, if nothing else, power the airport, power the west side of Cleveland. We're spending millions a year, to First Energy just to power our airport, right? So I know that's for a different conversation at another date. But I have one last question, is Chief, to you on, you indicated that the stadium was built, and it's in the answer and the questions that the council sent over, question number 15. The Lakefront Stadium was built and designed specifically to accommodate an NFL football team. The stadium is not suitable for other purposes, and it will be demolished upon the termination of the lease at the sole expense of the Browns. Mr. Chairman, to Chief Tiuan, have we held concerts at that stadium?
We have,
Have we held hockey at that stadium?
I believe.
Yes. The answer is yes. And then, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Tiuan, we've also held soccer games at that stadium, correct?
On occasion, yes.
Yes, okay, I was just making sure. Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey, this is a take it or leave it deal, correct? And that was very specific. Well, you had an answer first.
Through the chair, yes, we feel like this is the best deal we could.
No, I didn't ask that. Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey, this is a take it or leave it deal.
Yes.
Okay, so, which is exactly what Jimmy Haslam told me when I had the conversation with him. His quote was, I don't have to give you anything. And I used the analogy before about dating somebody. And with the extension of the lease, with having him keep his hands into the community benefits, especially the extension of the lease, and I use that analogy of dating that girl that, doesn't love us anymore. And I'm looking at the administration bringing this to us, and it's almost like now the shoe's on the other foot, right? It's like, that the girl wants to leave you, but now we're trying to hang on by allowing him to keep us $2 million here, $5 million here. I've been a huge advocate to keep that team on the lakefront since day one. But I say, if the administration has made up its mind that the team is going, I will still be a no vote here. I don't know if this will pass through council or not. But if he's done the minute that last second ticks off the clock at the end of his lease, get out, go. Because we know that even recycling things, when the demolition, he's not allowing the city to keep that. We probably know there's got to be $5 to $7 million just in steel at that stadium that will be recycled. That'll come off his $30 million. So instead of allowing him to stick around for another 2 or 3 years, if he's that confident that he's going to build Jimmy's World by the time he needs it built, God bless him, right? Go. But we don't have to make it easy on him either. We could still continue the lawsuits, right? No judge or no court has ruled on the lawsuit yet. So to me, it's like giving up. And I said before, I'd go down fighting bloody and lose before I would give up. And unfortunately, I think that the administration is representing the city of Cleveland saying, we give up. Just yesterday, I went into a store and some guy's complaining about the game. And I just looked at him, didn't know who he was, and I was like, should the Browns move to Brook Park? Older African-American male. He said, as much as I hate to play on the field and I hate the ownership, no, that team needs to stay on the lakefront. That's our team. There's the tradition, there's the history. There's everything that goes along with it. And I just don't think that certain people within 601 Lakeside get that. And I think that once you get out into the community, and the people that have supported it for the last 30 years and will continue for the next 3 years, when they realize that it's gone, it's gone. And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Davey, with all due respect to the mayor, that's going to be his legacy. You can talk all you want about a flashy downtown, about a flashy lakefront, about advancement of this. People seem to forget that we have Edgewater. We have Euclid Beach. You have Voinovich Park. You're going to open something up to look at a break wall. All right? And I understand, and I can see a vision, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Mayor Bibb who, with the own admission, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey, through the law director, the words out of his own mouth, is yes, we are saying that the Cleveland Browns can leave the city of Cleveland, and that is what legacies are built on. That's why Art Modell is not in the Hall of Fame. We have Monday Night Football because of Art Modell, but nobody remembers that. We have overtime because of Art Modell. Nobody remembers that. He ain't in the Hall of Fame because he moved this team. And the administration right now, today, is saying that team can leave. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councilman. You want to make a response?
Please,
Yes.
through the chair to Councilman Casey, against my better judgment, I will take the bait on your dating analogy. I will state that as someone who has gone through enough heartbreak in his life, it is also sometimes better for you and your partner when you decide for things to be over to split the rent until the lease is up. This is not Love is Blind. We aren't looking to win at the end of the dating show. The point is to make prudent, pragmatic decisions based on the residents and the bottom line. And while I argue that it may feel good in those moments when you're breaking up, to say the quiet thing out loud, maybe the thing you should have said a little bit sooner in the relationship. But oftentimes we find ourselves in a much better position if we can take a big deep breath, look ourselves in the mirror, go out with some friends and meet somebody new. And so I hope, Councilman, that the legacy is not one of a petulant breakup, but one that is really rooted in solutions and outcomes for the taxpayers. And I am confident with the hard work from a lot of the teammates at this table today, our future is brighter than our past. And so, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey. And we can relationship talk all we want. I'd rather kick her to the curb and be done with her and move on. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Thank you, Chief. Councilwoman Morrow? And then
I'm so
Harsha
glad that
House.
this extended analogy has been about kicking out the girl who you no longer want. It's really enjoyable. So I really appreciate the conversation today and the thorough questions. I also want to thank my colleagues who are letting me skip the line a little bit because I have to leave in a few minutes. I'm going to hone in on just one particular point that was my question. It was question number, let's see here, 33 in the questions that were sent over. And I just want to make sure I have explained my question and gotten a very clear answer on the record about the idea of dismissal with prejudice. And this comes from a space of the idea in law school of issue spotting. I genuinely don't know what the answer to this question is. I just want to make sure that the question is understood and responded to. And I want to lay out sort of where my legal brain is going and understanding that sometimes people with law degrees get themselves into trouble when they ask legal questions about areas that are not necessarily their topic of expertise. But I do seem to remember some topics in conversation in law school about the ideas of a dismissal with prejudice. And the idea of a dismissal with prejudice is that you cannot then refile the lawsuit. And one of the other ideas of a dismissal with prejudice is you can't refile a just very slightly similar lawsuit with a very slightly different claim. So for instance, if you have like a very classic trip and fall, okay, and you have listed out a bunch of claims because of your damage to you scraped your knee and you hurt your back, and then you have sued the place where you tripped and fell, and you've reached a settlement out of court, and part of that settlement is that you get a chunk of money and you dismiss the claims with prejudice, right? You cannot then refile a case based on that trip and fall, saying, I actually also hit my head. I also hit my head and I have a concussion. The idea is that you've reached a global resolution of the problem that reached you that day. And my concern about getting to the point of a dismissal with prejudice on the Modell law is a question of what happens in the admittedly unlikely, I understand this is not something we think is currently on the table, but what happens if a year down the line the Brook Park deal falls through? The Cleveland lakefront is done, and we are suddenly in the position of the Haslam Sports Group saying, we're leaving Cleveland, we're going to Columbus, we're going to another area. I understand that is unlikely, but does the law department believe that we could refile a Modell law claim based on the Haslam Sports Group taking the Browns out of the region after we have dismissed this case where we are claiming that they are taking it out of the city, but we've dismissed it with prejudice? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilwoman. So as law director, my job is to defend the city. So I'm not going to provide an opinion which might undermine a claim in the future. I want to make sure that we preserve all of our rights that we can going forward. So let me try to answer your question as best I can. But please understand that my job is to make sure that if something happens to the city, we have arguable claims going forward. So I am sure that if that were to happen, the Cleveland Browns would argue exactly what you were suggesting. I think that there would be a variety of ways to suggest that this is different and doesn't fall within that doctrine of collateral estoppel, which you articulated. So several things I think are worth considering. And of course, it depends on the facts of what happens, where they would go, what would happen. Did they make representations to us that were truthful? A variety of other issues. And please also understand that our litigation is still going forward right now. And one of those pieces has to do with whether the supposed new Modell law applies to this case or not. And certainly it's our view that it does not, and it's our view that we have strong claims, which is why they need to pay us to get rid of those claims. Look, the Browns will absolutely argue that we can't refile it, and we would argue the opposite. And it's my job here at this table is not to give away an inch of territory in protecting that claim.
Thank you. I think your answer highlights my exact concern, and through the chair, I'm wondering if a better resolution, because my other concern is that if we were to refile, our argument of the old Modell law applying would be substantially weakened because we'd be, of course, filing a new case versus preserving our case as is. Why didn't we agree to stay the litigation pending the Brook Park, like get a shovel in the ground, get the finance stack completed? We could achieve the exact same result by just staying the litigation and then dismissing with prejudice once the Brook Park deal had gone forward, or any deal in the region. Through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilwoman. The answer to that is when you reach a settlement, you always stay the case pending the documentation of the full settlement agreement. So that's why we did it this way, and certainly I think it enables there to be a reduction of risk and uncertainty for everybody.
But through the chair, this at what point in the effectuation of this settlement deal are we expected to dismiss our case with prejudice? Through the chair.
So after the passage by this county approving it and the final signatures where the ink dries. So I think it's within 48 hours of final agreement.
Right. So your answer that, okay, of course we're staying litigation pending resolution of this settlement agreement. That's a different thing from what I'm saying. That's just, hey, we've got this on the table. we're going to sign and finalize it. But what we did not agree to was staying the litigation pending the completion of the Brook Park deal and getting a shovel in the ground in Brook Park. We are not staying the litigation. We are dismissing prior to that happening. And I don't understand why,
Sure.
why not fight to just stay. It causes no harm, no additional fees. We've stayed it for this extended period of time. And that way we only dismiss with prejudice and risk our claims after we are assured that the Browns are staying in the region at a minimum, through the chair.
I'm not sure that I do understand your question. So let me just say this, which is, in order to start the clock on the payments, we need to dismiss with prejudice. And so that's a critical reason to begin that 25 million and everything else.
Thank you. This is essentially a disagreement in terms. You agreed to a term where we dismissed with prejudice prior to the Brook Park deal being finalized. We agreed to dismiss within 48 hours of this settlement agreement being done. Is that correct, through the chair?
Yes. So when you say the Brook Park deal, you mean the deal between the Browns and Brook Park?
Essentially,
Yeah.
the deal that allows there to be a shovel in the ground to begin work on
Yes.
the Brook Park Stadium. We are dismissing prior to that being completed, through the chair.
Correct. And to the administration, what
Yes.
she's saying is that to ensure that they're actually going to move there and not do a bait and switch and say we're going there, making it look like they're going, and then they turn around and not go there, is what the councilwoman is saying.
Well, here's the other reason, which is we believe that they are in violation currently, as Councilman Casey asked, for simply making these procedures, negotiations, and steps forward to moving. So for them and for us, we need to clarify that we're not going to bring claims on that in exchange for the $100 million commitment.
I understand that. I just think I don't quite understand why we structured it where we are losing our opportunity to raise a claim down the line if our shared goal is that the Browns stay in the region at a minimum. We seem to be creating a window of time in which we've given up our claims, and you furrowed your brow, so I say
Yeah.
that in the sense of when we dismiss with prejudice,
Sure.
we say we are not suing you under the Modell law. We've said we are not pursuing this case, but we have not confirmed that the Browns are staying in the region because the Brook Park construction has not begun. The financing isn't completed. There is not an assured path, and in fact, there's active litigation at the State House to prevent the Brook Park deal from happening. Does that element make sense, that there's sort of a gap? The way we've structured it creates a window where we have dismissed our claims, but we haven't confirmed that the Browns are staying in the region, through the chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, to the councilwoman, just briefly, if they decide that the Brook Park deal doesn't go through, they could conceivably continue in Brown Stadium, but we keep the 25 million. So one of the reasons that we did that is we're assured of their upfront payment, even if their Brook Park deal eventually falls through.
Thank you. And I think again, very unlikely, very worst case scenario that I'm trying to anticipate for is the Brook Park deal falling through and HSG saying we're moving the team out of the region. We're taking them to another town. And what is Cleveland's ability and legal claims in that instance? And it seems to me that we substantially weaken our case by dismissing with prejudice at this stage compared to staying the litigation until the Brook Park deal is finalized and then dismiss with prejudice. That we could dismiss with prejudice down the line just as easily, but preserve our rights during this window where the Brook Park deal is not finalized.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, a couple things. First of all, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that if there's a new violation, that's something that we would consider at that time and evaluate at that time. Secondly, they've paid a substantial amount of money to acquire the land already in Brook Park. So let me just say I agree with your framing of the hypothetical as very unlikely that they won't go. So, in any one of the problems with lawyers is that we can always imagine things, and
Yeah.
then we start putting so much into a settlement agreement of things that are unlikely to happen that at some point you have to say, okay, we want to control for the things that are reasonable risks, but we don't want to imagine things that are incredibly unlikely. And I think that's the case here.
Okay, I will respectfully disagree about not needing to anticipate this, because I think what we have shared here at the table is our lack of trust between the city of Cleveland and the Haslam Sports Group. That there is a lack of, that the trust factor has not always been there. And I think the only thing I could imagine hurting the city worse than the Browns leaving from the lakefront to Brook Park is the team leaving from the lakefront altogether. And I would truly wish to avoid that. And the only thing I'd offer to my colleagues and to you all, because I did promise this was a short line of questioning, and I apologize, is that there seems to be a very easy solution where we could preserve our claims for this window while the Brook Park deal is being finalized, if we would just stay our litigation for a period of months, and then once there are shovels in the ground or whatever measurement you want to use, but something more certain than what we have now, then we dismiss with prejudice. Because as you stated here, once we dismiss with prejudice, it will open the door for the Haslam Sports Group to come back to Cleveland and say, you don't get a second bite at the apple. You don't get to try to keep us here. And I would just argue we should try to preserve that for as long as we can, our claims for as long as we can.
I think they're preserved. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Harsh, and then Councilwoman House Jones, what closes out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Co-Chair, and Mr. Co-Chair. A couple of questions, and I apologize if any of this clarity has already been provided, but just for my own. Through the chair to whoever wants to answer about the pad ready state again. Pad ready, that does not include, through the chair, removal of the existing pylons, correct?
To the councilman through the chair, I expect that we're going to come back to you with a full definition of pad ready before we ink the deal. It does not include all the pylons to like a certain point. It's a hard question to answer because we're trying to do as much as we can to keep the site flexible for development, but
Right.
not to make the site unstable in
And
any
through,
way.
Through the chair to Chief Tiawan, did the Osborne engineering study comment specifically about the state of the pylons? Because I know those were a big part of the construction.
I don't remember if they did or not, but that I would imagine that would not, because they're underground.
Right.
It would not be something that you can inspect. But
Right.
I would add to Jessica Trevisano's comment that normal practice in demolition is that anything underground is usually cut off at a certain depth below final pad elevation. So I believe in this case it's 4 feet.
I think so. I'd have to go back and
That's
check.
normal practice.
Okay, because my concern here, Mr. Chair, is whether or not the pad ready state includes the existing pylons, which have a shortened shelf life. I think originally there was some thought that the stadium could last 45, maybe 50, 60 years, at which point the whole thing would need to be redone. And my assumption would always be that the pylons get replaced in that process as well. But if we're just capping them, then whatever happens on top of it is going to have to factor in a 30-year-old pylon structure underneath it, which could effectively alter the life of anything built on top, which gets back into the question about, does the pad-ready state mean they're just going down 4 feet and stopping there, and whatever goes in next has to be able to exist for a long time on top of that existing infrastructure? It sounds like we don't know entirely, but the answer is probably yes. It just stops at 4 feet.
Yeah, so I would say you would have to be very creative to try to reuse an existing foundation.
Right.
For new construction and.
Right. So the removal of the pylons would be optimal then, because then we would have it to a pre-construction state where it's ready to go just as if nothing was ever there in the first place.
Removal to 4 feet below the surface.
Well, except that you still have to go below that if you want to put a new if you need to build a substructure to hold something moving forward, you'd still have to remove those.
Through the chair to the councilman, not necessarily. You could work around those.
Depending on the structure.
Yeah, it would,
Okay.
literally have no bearing.
I don't want to get, I don't want to get, no, I'm going to recognize that. Very well done. I don't want to get bogged down into the underground stuff, though. So I think that Councilman Moore's questions are very prescient because the Haslam's brought us down in groups of 3 years ago, 4 years ago, to show us renderings of the stadium after they renovated it. They wanted to renovate the north side. It was very nice looking, very, very pretty. They told everybody that it would be $1.2 billion, I think, to do that, and they wanted $600 million from the city and $600 million from others, and then decided never to show those drawings publicly, so the people at this table are some of the only ones that have seen it. And instead show everybody the public pictures of the Brook Park fiasco. It would not surprise me at all if they had a third set of drawings stashed away for Lorain County or Medina County or Geauga County or wherever they find good, cheap land that they potentially have sitting on a shelf that they haven't showed the folks at Brook Park, because this is their sort of pattern of behavior. And I think it is a legitimate issue to ask ourselves publicly and openly whether or not we're getting baited into the Browns leaving the region and playing along with the Haslams, who, you know, are pretty willing to play games with their investments. If the Brook Park site collapses because the funding sources are ruled illegal, so through the chair to perhaps the Chief Griffin, and the Browns come back and say, oops, that didn't work, we need to go back into the stadium. The current lease that they have through the chair allows how many years of extension after their initial 30 is up? How many years do they have built into this existing lease that's current right now?
Through the chair to the councilman, they have 2 one-year options to extend the lease.
And those existing options that they currently have access to?
I'm sorry, and I misspoke.
Oh.
They don't today have 2. As part of the settlement, they would acquire 2 one-year options.
Okay, so this is where we're going. They're in a lease right now. Let's call this lease A, the lease that they're in right now. Does lease A, the existing one today, have an option built into it if they need to extend an extra year or 2 pre-negotiated as part of the current existing lease?
It does not. It's a 30-year lease that ends in, I guess, January 2029.
So if we take Councilman Casey's gambit and we say no, we tell them to kick rocks. Yes. Right? And they don't have Brook Park ready to go in the fall of 2029. And they don't have another place to go. And they come back to the city of Cleveland and say, we need an extra year. And we have rejected this proposal. They have no pre-existing agreement for the cost of an additional year, correct? Through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilman, they do not have an existing option to extend beyond January of 2029.
So if we tell them it's cool, you can stay another year, but it's $50 million to stay a year, or $25 million, or $100 million, and effectively try to renegotiate this whole thing in 3 years, if we gamble and say that Brook Park's not ready, we would have that option.
So now you're asking business terms,
Potentially.
and I would defer to others about how to negotiate those business terms as a hypothetical.
Yeah, we're playing hypothetical, yes.
Chief?
Through the chair to the councilman, you're right. This is a hypothetical game that we could play. There's again a couple of factors that I think we would have to acknowledge. One would be that if we were to play said gambit, that we would also be essentially foregoing years of planning. And so we would really be crossing our fingers and hoping that our bet was right. And then if we were correct, we would then have to find $100 million in lease value for whatever their extension period would be. And as someone who, as stated in the early part of this, have been engaged with the Cleveland Browns since 2022, I can assure you that that $100 million in rent payments have not been in the equation. I think it's also just really important to note that you're 100% correct, Councilman. We originally engaged in a thoughtful, interesting, thought-intriguing conversation about what the remodeling of the current site might look like. And while it's unfortunate that we haven't been able to, move forward with that, if it feels prudent, it just feels prudent to acknowledge that the Browns have been clear that no other site in the city of Cleveland would have worked for them. They were not contemplating additional sites, and that if we were to get back to a situation in which we would be looking at the renovation, remodeling, or rebuilding of a new stadium, they would still need to go somewhere and play for that period of time, because there's substantial improvements that are going to be needed past the useful life of the asset. And so the answer to the hypothetical question is a hypothetical response, which is it would be incredibly more expensive and wildly risky. And that is the opposite of what we've heard from this body, which is it should be not only cost neutral, but beneficial, and it should happen quickly. I think, the Councilman Casey used the words, let's kick them out. Nothing more urgent than we are currently doing than saying this expires at the time of expiration with a potential of 2 additional years. So.
It's interesting because I understand it's a huge theoretical gamble, but what you're saying partially is that even if we were to take that gambit and they come back and say, you win, we didn't get it done in time, or we didn't get it done at all, the investment into the stadium itself would be so much that they would have to find an alternative playing site while we fix up the existing stadium. Because my understanding was, through the chair to the Chief Teowin's point with the Osborne, was that if we just keep maintaining current investment level, which is about $11 million a year, it's good for another 10, 15 years. It doesn't need a full redress.
Through the chair to the council member, let me just make sure that I clarify this point, because again, this is sort of one of those non-compulsory conversations. What I would maybe amend in that statement is, upon termination of the lease, the Cleveland Browns HSG have expressed that the place in which they wanted to play football is going to be different than the current place in which they play football, right? And so their business model is going to be predicated on a whole bunch of new things, such as parking revenues or suites or seats. So I think it's a little bit premature or maybe hypothetical to say, in the future, if this lease ran out and they didn't have anywhere else to play, that they would be compelled to pick Cleveland Browns Stadium and remediations. While those remediations may allow them to continue playing, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're playing in the place that they would want to be playing, in the type of atmosphere that they want to play, that drives the kind of revenue that they want to have. And that's a purely business decision.
The amount of revenue they want to have is really at core of this entire conversation. Through the chair, to the Chief Davey, when you guys were negotiating with them, did any conversation with them about altering the existing stadium to a repurposed use come up? So instead, knock out the north side and turn it into a new Blossom, turn it into a concert facility, transition it into something that complements the Rock Hall and becomes a music venue? Were there any conversations like that about altering the current stadium part of the?
Through the chair, point of clarification, altering and continuing to play football?
No.
Or
So
altering
at the end of the day,
dismantling?
what the agreement includes returning the stadium to a pad-ready state, so tearing down the stadium and demolishing it. Did at any point in the conversation, was there a talk about just altering the use of the stadium rather than demolishing it?
To the councilman, no, not with HSG.
Okay. Just a couple last questions through the chair to Mr. Skinner. Are the Browns currently contributing anything to the NCA?
To the councilman, through the chair, no.
Okay. And through the chair to Mr. Skinner, do you know how much the NCA could benefit from the Browns' involvement over the next 3 years? Have you run the numbers on their beverage sales if they were to chip in?
To the councilman, through the chair, there's too many scenarios for what that looks like to answer that question in a real way. Depends on, yes, their revenues, but also percentages agreed to and fees agreed to. There's too many scenarios to.
Okay, but through the chair to Mr. Skinner, there's a low ball and a high ball.
Sure.
And what's the low and the high?
Yeah, so
estimates?
to the councilman through the chair, again, there are just too many scenarios to even get to low, high ball. I mean, it's simple math. You can add on fees for seats or anything like that, but none of those conversations have happened, and none of those agreements have been had. And again, there's 1,000 different ways to think about that. I do want to point out, Mr. Councilman, through the chair, the NCA, while there is, it is meant to collect revenue right away, the actual value of the NCA is to expedite lakefront development with future development partners. When you look at NCAs across the state, the value that you need to create to build public space, to build district parking, that comes from future development. So that's where you're really unlocking the power of that, as opposed to the specific current users.
The reason I'm curious is that, and it comes back to this page 3, last bullet point, which I'm just going to read it because it's not up on screen. And it says, and this is from the administration, quote, "Both parties will mutually support infrastructure plans with respect to the Brook Park Stadium mixed-use project, the modernization of Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, and the development of the Cleveland Lakefront, including the redevelopment of the Burke Lakefront Airport property." And I guess what I'm trying to understand here is, like, what is the Browns' role? And I know this has been brought up already, and I'm kind of opening up a previous subject, but I'm still a little bit murky on this. If the Browns are not contributing to the NCA, if the Browns are planning to leave and we're looking at giving them blessings to do so, what is their role in the development of the Cleveland Lakefront when we say both parties will mutually support infrastructure plans?
Mr. Fasano?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, and I'm sorry if this is a repetitive answer. This is a pretty broad section intended to capture both things around the airport, where I think infrastructure makes more sense when we're thinking about any kind of improvements done to 271 around the airport that would also mutually benefit the Brook Park Stadium. As it relates to the lakefront development in Burke, I just want to be, no hesitation. There is no obligation or commitment or development rights that HSG has to the lakefront or Burke. There's no contemplated agreements or partnership or anything beyond what we've talked about today. So things like the city asking for their support when it comes to us going to the federal government and asking to close Burke, for example.
So, because I have no residents at all that want to pay a single dime towards helping the Browns leave. As a matter of fact, it's probably the number one angle I hear from neighbors, aside from them wanting them to stay, which is the top response when you poll the neighborhood. The second thing is, we shouldn't pay anything for them to leave. Will we pay anything? And I said, well, no, except both parties will mutually support infrastructure plans with respect to the Brook Park Stadium mixed-use project. So I guess my question is, what is the expected cost for the city of Cleveland to facilitate their move? I mean, obviously there's streets, there's sidewalks, there's water, there's sewer, there's infrastructure costs. You don't even put a bulldozer out there without somebody paying for the bulldozer. They're going to build 80 feet into the ground, and I don't think anybody has seriously considered what that means engineering. The water table in Cleveland is 3.5 feet. Go dig a 4-foot hole in your backyard and it fills with water. They're going to put an 80-foot hole in the ground and put a stadium inside of it. And we haven't even talked about the infrastructure needs for pumping water uphill out of an 80-foot hole. There needs to be money spent on this, and what part of that is the city of Cleveland agreeing to up front?
Through the chair to the councilman, the answer is none. There is not an obligation by the city to pay a penny to help them move. What the section talks about really is that we would support each other through a phone call or through support through the various other entities, whether it's state, federal, or elsewhere. But it does not obligate the city to pay dime one or penny one to facilitate the move.
And to the councilman, through the chair, I'll just add, this is a point that we've heard before, and in the final settlement agreement, the full settlement agreement, you'll see it say, for the avoidance of doubt, this does not contemplate any financial commitment from the city as it relates to this section. So this is something that we've heard and have addressed in the more full agreement.
Okay. I just have two last comments, and then I will get out of your way. The first is that I feel like a lot of this hinges on this notion that's been floating around Cleveland forever, that if we just develop the lakefront, we'll become, the American Toronto of the Great Lakes, and we will explode, and our economy will flourish, and we will, I don't know, turn into the Toronto of the Americas. And I just want to remind people that there's a reason that we don't have a ton of lakefront development already. And part of it is that we are the cloudiest city on the Great Lakes. Thank God for Buffalo. They're the only one that has more cloud coverage than us, but we sit at the southern and eastern shores of the Great Lakes, which means as weather travels from the west to the east, it picks up moisture and comes to us, which is why we have cloudy days, because we're at the bottom. The United States averages 205 sunny days per year in American cities, and we have 168. We're not even, we're overcast over 50% of the time. And it just doesn't create the same vibes that Chicago has, or Milwaukee has, or Green Bay, or Toronto, or Detroit. And I really, I hate to see us, go through all of this to find out that not as many people are interested in living down there as we hoped. But I really need to end on this. City council members get hammered all the time for campaign contributions from investors. We get hammered whether we get those directly or indirectly. And we all know that the Haslam Sports Group or Jimmy and Dee or whatever went down to Columbus and spread a lot of money around. I think about $500,000 in campaign contributions a month before the State House voted along purely partisan lines with 100% Republicans in favor and no Democrats in favor to give them $600 million of what is it? The money's from? It's
Unclaimed funds.
Taxpayer money that doesn't belong to them, that they handed over to the Haslams, and there's a lawsuit that this might be illegal, but we know that they gave a lot of campaign contributions. So it's going to come up from the media at some point. I might as well be blunt right now and ask through the chair to the chief, are we aware of any campaign contributions from the Haslam Sports Group to the mayor's campaign?
Chief?
Through the chair to the councilperson, as chief of staff, I don't engage in politics or electioneering, so I don't have any information about the current state of our campaign contributions. I would offer that all elected officials have campaign contributions, and it's not simply the mayor that needs to be concerned about ethics and where cash comes from. And so while I certainly can't answer your question, because I don't involve myself in such affairs, I certainly share your concern and hope that everyone adheres to the Ohio Ethics Commission's laws on such things.
Thanks, Chief.
Through the chair to the councilman, first of all, thank you for noting we are the cloudiest city other than Buffalo, and I would note that everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. But having said that, as we think about our lakefront development, one of the important pieces of this deal is that it provides some certainty for us to change the lakefront from a place where millionaires and billionaires play to a place where it can be a lakefront for everyone. And I think that is a critical piece. And I don't know that we have to imagine that we suddenly transform ourselves into a city the size of 10 million population Toronto. But I do think it's our obligation to plan for the future as past generations planned for us, and to try to make it a little bit better every day. And so I think one of the things that this deal does is it opens up the possibility for a lakefront that's not confined to the wealthy, but is open to everyone.
Well, I have to ask, because I'm sure it will become part of the story at some point, right? It became part of the story on how they got the money from the State House, and it becomes part of the story every election cycle, and we all certainly have to deal with it. And I'm just curious if it's something that we should be looking for down the line. The last thing I'll say is the question about whether or not we're subsidizing pro sports or investing in the local economy. This is just such a coin flip argument. I hear people pick which side they want to be on depending on the day. But there was a very strong consensus that when the Cavs were in Richfield, that this did not benefit the city of Cleveland. There was a very celebrated moment when they came and started playing in Cleveland. We're happy now to be moving their practice facility from Independence up to the east bank of the river, and we call this a win for the city. Subsidizing pro sports is something that is very unsavory, but investing in the local economy is something that is very, very good. And we are definitely divesting in the local economy, no matter how we feel about the billionaires involved should the Browns leave. Thank you. I will stop.
Thank you, Councilman.
And I
Just-
appreciate the time.
Just to clear things up,
Yes,
I
Director.
received a text just seconds ago, just to answer your question, that the mayor's campaign has not received a penny from the Haslams or anyone affiliated.
See,
with
that was the
Haslam.
answer I was looking for.
And we just don't know.
No, it's fair, it's fair. I get it. It's separate lanes, but there you go. That's the answer we want. Thanks.
Thanks,
The answer is
Director.
both, which is we don't know because we shouldn't know, but we get a text that says the answer is no. So,
Thank you, Director. So we're going to end with Councilwoman House Jones on the council side. Then we have one person here for public comment. We're going to allow them to speak before we close out the discussion today. Councilwoman House Jones, with that beautiful brooch she has on.
Thanks. Okay. Get it from Nor Blanc, a wonderful black-owned company. Shout out to, yeah, anyway. I'm gonna just ask a couple of questions. Through the chair to the team that's here, I know there was a conversation earlier, I believe with Councilman's Life, that talked about pad ready. The one thing though is that we do not have pad ready actually defined. What is the definition of pad ready, and why is it not included in the ordinance?
Yeah, to the councilwoman through the chair, pad ready is mentioned in the settlement term sheet, but the full definition of pad ready will be in the full settlement agreement, which will be brought before council before final passage. We're
Okay.
still negotiating the exact definition that we agreed to on pad ready.
So when will we get that? Through the chair to the team here? When will that be getting? So it's the expectation to vote on something where the definition is not clear and vote on that?
Just to clarify a few things. So today, we're not voting on this at all today. We're just hearing it, so there'll be no vote, no amendments offered today or discussed. But earlier, when we began this, the administration, this term sheet that we have was not, this was initial kind of draft. And they are, through these continued conversations, there are going to be more edits and more things that may come out of this in terms of clarification. We talked about timelines earlier because when the request for the $2 million each year has to go in, so they are going to develop another version, and then for our next hearing on this, then it will have that information so that we can further flush those points out.
Okay. My next question, there was a conversation, again, at the beginning of the meeting where I guess the conversation is saying that the community overwhelmingly indicated they wanted access to the lakefront. Basically, that was the summary of it. And so, I just want to go back to that through the chair to the team. How do you define community? How is community defined in those terms? As you're saying, the majority of community indicated they want access to the lakefront.
To the councilman through the chair, over the last 3 years, the city and myself and a number of other partners have conducted hundreds of community engagement sessions in every ward and neighborhood in the city, have received well over 5,000, nearing 6,000 survey responses, both in person and through our website. I'm more than happy to provide you a detailed summary of every single meeting that took place and general takeaways on the survey responses as well. It's also all available on my organization's website, clevelandnorthcoast.com.
And through the chair to the team, is it broken down by geographics area? Can you see what the responses are based on where you are and where you live in the city of Cleveland?
To the councilman through the chair, it is not based on geography of what specifically is wanted. That's not sort of how these questions were asked, but you can see geographically where every meeting took place and in what neighborhoods they were facilitated in, and in most cases, number of attendance as well.
Okay, so the reason why through the chair, the reason why I asked that is because people say we are speaking on community, and if you don't have, how would I know if that was representative of those that I represent here in the city of Cleveland? Hence being, as I have attended a couple of those, and many times when going to the community meetings that were held kind of in my neighborhood, what you will see is you get a broad range of constituents throughout the city of Cleveland. And so I think that is just I'll look at the information and be able to give a response, but it would be very interesting to understand who and where people are saying that that is their priority, because I know that is not, from my experience, that is not a priority based on residents that are living in, Huff, Asiatown, and parts of St. Clair Superior and downtown, as I have been engaging over these last 4 years with residents. So my next question will be through the chair, excuse me, to the team that's here. We had these conversations regarding the 1 to 2 year option lease if the relocation is not, if the development is not complete. My question is including, because if we can say it explicitly, so currently right now, we are committed or obligated to pay for at least $4 million a year on health and safety of the stadium. Would that also be included, the additional $4 million for the 1 to 2 years if the stadium has to stay here for infrastructure?
To the councilwoman through the chair, the city in our lease agreement with the Browns, we're actually obligated to pay for a couple different areas of capital repairs. As part of this settlement, we are limiting that obligation to just repairs required for health and safety of visitors and employees of the stadium. And so our estimate is about $4 million each year, and that would go every year that the stadium is in use by the Browns. So if there are 2-year options exercised, then yes, it would be another $4 million each year is our estimate of what it would take to keep the stadium safe for visitors.
And through the chair to the team here, with this extension, why was it felt necessary to extend that level of grace toward the HSG group? Why? Based on what?
To the councilwoman through the chair, the negotiation and the settlement was negotiated as a package. And so one of the things that HSG asked for as part of the package was for the city to agree to 2 one-year-long extensions, which we've agreed to with some conditions and in the context of this $100 million package.
My question through the chair to the team here, I asked why. I understand they asked for it, and I'm asking, based on the administration's perspective, why did you agree to it?
Yeah, Chief Davey can add, but I think the only reason we said yes is because there's also $100 million worth of benefit attached to the.
Chief?
Yeah, through the chair to the council member, yeah, simply to get the deal, the answer is all of these things were contingent on one another. So the package that you see is what both parties have been able to reach agreement around. So those deal terms are the ones that HSG has put forward.
Okay. When we, I guess the other question was as we talk about, through the chair to the team here, we talked about infrastructure and the overall context in the state of Ohio where there are always competing entrants as it relates to investments in infrastructure. Have we done any estimation on what it would be when it comes to the competing with this new development, SSG, as far as like obtaining like state grants, things of that nature for our own infrastructure needs when it comes to just like basic water pollution control, streets, things that will be available? What is the future forecasting of competition going to be now with this new development?
Chief?
So through the chair to the councilwoman, appreciate that question. I think as we know, public dollars have become more and more competitive, and I think that's what you're alluding to. And we appreciate that. I think we've showed our success with the federal funding, the grants that we've received for the North Coast Connector, to the point where even our state agencies are surprised at the success rate that we've had. We will continue to advocate for those dollars, whether it's directly through the feds or through the state for those dollars for infrastructure improvements. So you can have my word that we will be aggressive on advocating for those grant dollars.
Councilwoman Welch asked for a point.
Yeah, I just need a point of clarity around the question that Councilwoman House Jones mentioned around the demographics. Oftentimes when we do focus grouping, I understand that we have broken it down by communities and which communities actually had the meetings, but I think what is also very important is what were the age like. I mean, senior needs are very different from student needs. What students want in their city is very different from people who are elder millennials like ourselves. And so I think having an understanding about whether that data was collected, where that data lives, what was the breakdown of demographics, as the councilwoman mentioned around zip code, which wards they're in. I mean, I think that's very helpful information to have as we're talking about who's the community at hand and how we're defining the community.
To the councilman through the chair. So yes, happy to share all that information to you. Throughout the entire process, we use a tool called Wyatt, which is Wellbeing Insights, Asset, and Trade-offs. It's a representation check tool. Happy to share the results of that tool to you. Would also offer to every council member here, I'm not shy about talking about the lakefront. I'm more than happy to attend whatever community meeting you all are hosting and talk to folks in your neighborhoods and folks that you represent directly as well.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman?
Through the chair to the team, as we look at this, I think this is the term sheet, settlement term sheet. I guess section 2F, which says use best efforts to assist the Browns with public safety planning and utilities in connection with operations of the Brook Park Stadium mixed-use project. What is the expectation there?
Chief, Mr. Rosano.
To the councilwoman through the chair, just to be clear, this is not any sort of financial commitment or city resources. This is an agreement mostly on information sharing. You know, what has it taken for the city to provide for public safety in this location, and how can we share that information to support our colleagues in Brook Park?
Through the chair to the administration, since we are going to have this ongoing relationship with the ASG group in the future, is the expectation for the city of DeCleveland to provide public safety during the game days?
No.
Okay. And my last point is I do actually have an amendment which I will share that I would like for this body to consider. I will send it to everybody. I do have it printed out, but it's specifically just outlining regarding equitable contracting, hiring requirements, and public reporting. Many times we talk about these things, but I've become ever more clear that if it is not explicitly stated, then it doesn't get done, and people then are required to have public records requests and all of those types of things, and I really believe that we need to move away from that, but I'll share that with you all to have your feedback as we're going through this process. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman House Jones. Before we move to Mr. Kucinich for his public comment, Councilman Casey asked for a very brief question.
Just one question, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Davey or Director Griffin. Looks like there's about 21 points to this to the term sheet. How many of those were the cities and how many were the Haslams? So if this is a negotiation between the city and the Haslams, obviously negotiations go, it's a two-way street. So how many of these were what the city asked for and how many is what the Haslams asked for?
Can you get us a breakdown?
Yeah, and if you don't know right now, if you could get us
through the councilman, through the chair to the councilman. Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried to break down which points. And then, you know, the other thing to know is that sometimes a minor point can get split up into multiples. So I don't know how much that will tell you, other than to say
It'll tell us a lot. So if you could just let us know, Mr. Chairman, to the director, just how many of these were what the city took a hard stance on and how many are what the Haslam Sports Group took a hard stance on.
We'll try to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Can I add one more thing? I just want to thank everyone here for this very detailed and incisive. You guys asked great questions about, you know, usually when we have a contract or an ordinance, this body simply approves it and says, hey, go talk and the law department or Department of Public Works will negotiate it. But this is a different contract, and it's a contract of importance. And so I want to thank you for letting us come to talk in greater detail than we, I think, have ever seen in any other contract, because it's important, and we want to be here to answer your questions.
Sure.
So thank you for
Thank you, Director, and also like to echo thank you to the to my colleagues in their line of questioning today. Very thoughtful. Thank you all. Thank you to my co-chairmen here this morning, Councilman Bishop, Councilman Slife, for their pre-engagement and their engagement here this morning. Thank you to all the members of the administration, the team who's here today, who came prepared to answer questions and very open and honest dialogue and discussion, and also Mr. Skinner, who's not a part of the administration, but is a very great partner of ours here in the city of Cleveland. So just thank you all for your diligence today. This is the first bite at the apple, well, the second bite technically, and so we may have one or two more bites at this as we move forward through this process. And now we're going to have Mr. Kucinich come on up. You can take the seat on the end, sir. Come on up. You can take the seat on the end, the very last seat. Yes. Stand here. No, go ahead. You can sit down. You can take the last seat on the end. So this is, committees have public comment portion of the meeting to allow those who may want to make a statement. And we ask that the administration or members of council, if they would like to, give any feedback, that they stay after the committee to chat with those who are here to make public comment. The same process that we normally have. The public comment portion is normally 3 minutes, but I'll extend the courtesy to you, Mayor, and allow you an additional 2 minutes to speak. All right?
How much time, sir?
So you have 5 minutes.
That's great.
Thank you.
I think I can probably name that tune in less than that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, and members of the administration. First of all, a little bit about my background in case you're not familiar. I served as a member of City Council, several different areas of the city. I was clerk of the Cleveland Municipal Court, mayor of Cleveland, state senator, member of the United States House of Representatives. As you serve this community today, I have served this community in many different capacities. One of the ways in which I served was in 1996 as a member of the Ohio Senate. I was responsible for writing and passing what was then called the Taxpayers Protection Act and is now popularly known as the Modell Law. That was to protect the taxpayers, in particular to protect Cleveland, because our city had just lost an NFL team. And I wanted to make sure this never happened again, that we wouldn't lose a team again. And so today, unfortunately, the law that I passed, even though the state has amended it, the old law still applies. This law has not been enforced, and city and local investors could still have an opportunity to purchase this team and keep it in Cleveland. The city of Green Bay has 537,000 owners, not 537,000. And it's really important, members of council, to keep in mind that right now we have something that cities all over America wish they had, an NFL franchise. We have it. Cities in Mexico City would like an NFL franchise. London would like an NFL franchise. There are cities in Europe that would want an NFL franchise. We have one here, and it should not be given away. Now, council passed ordinance number 391-24, which instructed the administration to do everything it could to save the Browns, to keep them in Cleveland. I ask you to determine whether or not the city administration has followed your ordinance. And I say these are our Browns. We should not let them move. And certainly the city council, being as street smart as many of you members are, certainly understand when there's a hustle at work. Trying to push to get a decision by December 1st to take $25 million. What's the rush? To take $25 million or what? What happens? There's over, and I'm going to demonstrate this in a moment, there's over $1 billion in valued assets that need to be regarded here. not just giving something away because of a quick payment and high-pressure sales tactics. I know Mr. Starr and Mr. Polensek had mentioned, had questions about the real value of $100 million, and I think it's been established it's not $100 million. But $30 million to tear down the stadium, the Browns owners want to tear it down so there's no competition. That's a value asset for the city. 67,000-seat stadium is great value. And what's the city, what is the city actually giving up? It's giving up an NFL franchise for a hole in the ground. And, you know, all these other things are speculative. Now, I just, you know, while I was sitting here, I just drew a little bit of a chart about value. There hasn't been an appraisal, but I did some approximations and estimates here. That stadium value is about, right now, $325 million. It's 26 years old. It's not a piece of junk. It's a valuable property. If they're going to sell 50 or give 50 acres away one way or another on the lakefront where the stadium is, you check out the value of lakefront land. Confirm this for yourself. Find out for yourself. Get the appraisals. Lakefront land goes for about $1 million an acre. So you've got $50 million there. Burke Lakefront Airport, if they want to put this into the deal, another 450 acres. That's $450 million. The lawsuit, the city itself in its filing, which, you know, I have a copy of here from January, the city itself said that the city and its residents will lose at least $30 million in economic output every year. And then they said that the city will lose at least $11 million in annual tax revenue. Now, if you go back to the lawsuit in a 5-year period where the Browns are in violation because they made calls for moving the team, that lawsuit is worth at least $205 million.
Mr. Kucinich,
So there's over $1 billion in assets here
Sure.
that the council is being asked to give away. Don't do it. Look further. Take your time. Get experts to review all the costs and
Thank you,
values
sir.
involved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kucinich. Thank you. Again, thank you all for your time today. As I stated before, I think that the administration was in a tough position. This council gave clear directions. I think the administration heard those directions. It has, you know, laid a tremendous foundation for us to work from. And I appreciate, you know, the work that the administration has put in on behalf of all the Clevelanders here. I think it is very real that we cannot distort the truth. We cannot distort the facts here, that we have a state government who is not working with us, right? They actually had done things to work against us. And so I think this administration you know, has done what their role is to do, is to go out and figure out a best deal on behalf of the city. And again, do I think that we can take a good deal and make it a great deal? I think there's some opportunity there. However, that I give kudos to the administration for the work that you have put in to get us to this point, because it's very real that we could be left with zero. We've seen the rug pulled out from up under us with the Modell Law. We know a Supreme Court that is not in our favor. We have a state that just does not recognize homebrew, right? And so there are many other factors that we can name here that we had to consider. And we are often, all of us sit down here to make tough decisions, decisions that are not always the most liked decision by, you know, people who we represent or those who do business around the city. But it's decisions that we have to make, right? And if we all just make decisions based on who's going to like us afterwards, then we're sadly mistaken. And so, again, thanks to everybody, the administration and this council, for putting in the work and the due diligence on this topic here. So thank you all. And the council president, I'm sure, will take over the next hearing. All right, thank you all. Adjourn.